on entertainment across the continent, from drumming, singing, dancing, and rap. We start with Huguette, a female drummer from Congo who has been practicing drums for 15 years.
Huguette Tolinga loves music more than anything, especially her drums. For 15 years, the 22-year-old has been practicing whenever she can and playing wherever she goes. When I play, it's like climbing up somewhere high. But in the end, I find myself still on the ground. The percussionist lives in Kalamu district, where she rehearses with her band Ugembo in front of an audience of local youngsters. In Congo, drumming is a predominantly male pursuit, so Tolinga had to learn everything on her own, mostly by watching other musicians play. There was always conflict within her family. For this reason, she left the family home at the age of 19. At first, it was really difficult. It was not easy to get my family to accept what I'm doing here. But acceptance has come, from her family as well as from the men in the local drumming scene. Normally I play with men. Huguette is different from other women. She's just great. For me, it's amazing. Not strange, but amazing. She's an extraordinary girl. André Yoka is a music professor at the National Institute of Arts. He explains that the drum is a sacred object for the Congolese people. The female image is also fetishized, he says, so bringing the two together can be seen as problematic. The woman is a fetish. When you go to war, do not touch women. When you go fishing, do not touch women. When you go hunting, you must not touch women. If you touch women, you lose. And so the woman is also an object of taboo, and two objects of taboo cannot be together. But Tolinga does not want to give up her dream. She encourages other women to join her, regularly meeting to play music spontaneously. Young people from the area watch her with interest. Tolinga is now well known in Kinshasa, but she still has problems. The 22-year-old is still looking for a producer to support her, so far without success. But she is determined. One day, I'm going to open up a cultural centre to train other artists. Tolinga is already a role model for many girls. Now she wants to get to the top and become a big star in the Congo.
From the drummer in Congo, we go to a self-taught drummer in Kenya who learned his ancestral sound from his grandmother.
When John Rapasa Otieno was a child, he learned the centuries-old sounds of his ancestors while listening to his grandmother sing and watching her traditional dances. He decided to follow in her footsteps. He taught himself how to build and master more than 10 traditional instruments like this nyatiti.
There's need for the young ones to get to know the instrument, to get to know of their land, their people, their music, their environment. And that's why we decided to at least share with them the knowledge that we have of the instruments.
The instrument is a sound box that's tapped by the player, who often taps metal rings at the same time. Rapasa holds workshops to inspire more youngsters to play the traditional instrument from the Luo ethnic group in Western Kenya.
It's what we need to keep our culture alive, and I think Rapasa is really doing much in promoting our culture.
Rapasa didn't have the funds to buy his drums, soundboxes, or harps, so he started building them by collecting used and natural materials like the sisal plant, animal skins, wood, or metal. Sometimes he finds the cans he needs for his rattles at Nairobi's dump sites.
I saw the struggle of people asking, so where do we get that nyatiti? Where do we get that root? Where do we get that peke? Where do we get that nyangile or sanduku, you know? Yeah, so I decided, no, I will travel to these places. I will learn how to make them. And I will learn these sounds and bring them close to the people.
The nyatiti is Rapasa's principal instrument. This 8-string harp originated in Egypt. It was later played by the Luo people of Kenya. The lower 4 strings symbolize the first 4 days after a boy's birth, and the upper 4 strings represent the first 4 days after a man's death. It is traditionally played only by men.
I believe that whatever we are doing will change many. For example, you know, the kids will only do whatever they see every day. I think it's necessary for them to learn this so that it's something that is passing, because I also find people playing them. So that is how I also got inspired.
John Rapasa Otieno teaches youth how to play these traditional instruments free of charge. He's dedicated to upholding his grandmother's cultural traditions. Today, he performs for audiences whenever he can to make this ancient music popular once again.
So what's drumming without dancing? We head to Guinea-Bissau, where a young man is trying to ensure that the cultural dances from his country do not become extinct. Interesting.
4 o'clock. Time for one more rehearsal in Bandim Quarter, in the capital of Guinea-Bissau. Hector Diogenes Casamá directs the Netos de Bandim, Portuguese for Bandim's grandchildren. The group, which has more than 100 members of all ages, promotes the culture of Guinea-Bissau. They've already rescued 23 traditional dances from oblivion. Part of our work is going to a specific region where an ethnic group lives, and we collect information about the dance, music, and costumes. Later in Bissau, the group works on the dance and on the cultural components we rescued. Since its foundation in the year 2000, Netos de Bandim has won almost all the local and national carnival parades, gaining popularity among the youth. Through traditional dances and music, Netos de Bandim has helped keep children off the streets and given them an opportunity. Megalino Suarez de Gama grew up without parents. Today, he is a popular percussionist. I used to lead the life of a street child. I hung around in the streets doing bad things like stealing. But Netos de Bandim changed my life completely. Now I'm studying law at the university. Hector Casamá's initiative helps teenagers to discover their own talents and overcome obstacles in their lives. Most of the children in Netos de Bandim are vendors, orphans. They spend almost 70% of their time doing some work. And we support children in terms of education and health care. The organization relies solely on shows to generate income. There's no external support. Half of the profits go towards supporting the young dancers, such as Myra Paulino Ju, who recently graduated. I used to spend time as a vendor at the market. But Netos de Bandim's help enabled me to go to school every day. Now I don't go to the Bandim market anymore. I'm too busy at school. Netos de Bandim also offers literacy training for parents and vocational courses for the young. Currently, the group has partnerships with several schools and training centers. We have 10 to 15 young people attending training courses. Netos de Bandim have already taken Guinea-Bissau's culture to Gambia, Senegal, and Portugal, and to Carnival in Brazil.
Now, from dancing to more dancing, we head to Chad, where there's an open-air practice for children to discourage them from becoming potential targets for terrorist recruits.
6 o'clock in the morning in central N'Djamena. Dance practice with street children in the open air. Choreographer Aleva Nadavogo Yud is doing this to stop the children from falling into the wrong hands. If the children just hang around on the streets, they become potential targets for terrorists. When we talk of terror today, street children are at a high risk because they have lost hope. And someone who's lost hope might drink and may be ready to do anything for money. For example, working for the Boko Haram militants. No one speaks openly about it, but just about 60 kilometers away in the Lake Chad region, the presence of terrorists can be felt. What looks like a harmless dance is actively preventing terrorism. After 1.5 years of intensive training, the boys have come to trust their instructor. Aleva is my role model. I would also like to become a musician, an artist. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do in the future. Yakub still lives on the street, but Aleva has managed to get him a job at a carpenter's workshop. He doesn't get paid, but he at least gets something to eat. Aleva lives right next to the workshop with his wife and his child. He loves his daughter and spends every free moment with her. A love which most of the boys have never experienced. A love that fights against terror. Aleva is traveling to the other side of Chari River. He wants to visit 3 brothers who lived on the street for months. Thanks to Aleva, the boys returned back home. Their father is jobless and divorced. He has enough problems of his own. Whether they're here or not doesn't really matter. It's their decision. I can't force them into anything. Aleva has a different view. It's much easier when they're here. I can pick them up, work with them professionally, and then bring them back home. Aleva has photos taken for the project. For him, having the twins and their small brother back with their family means success, especially since terrorists cannot reach them here. Some of Aleva's boys spend the night at his place. Whether drunk or sober, the dancer accepts them just the way they are. At first, it was just one boy who would sleep here. Now 30 or more sometimes come. For this, Aleva had to convince members of his family and also the landlord to accept the street children into his home. When I started taking care of the children, everyone was against it. My parents and especially the mother to my daughter. But I told her, she either accepts the children or she can pack her things and go. In the end, she accepted it. We're still together, and nowadays she's the one who begs me to bring the children home so that they don't have to sleep on the street. My girlfriend understood that I'm doing this out of love. And the children can feel this too. Each and every day, a little bit more.
Great initiative. Now from dancing, we go to rap. Angola's rapper is taking big risk with his lyrics.
In other countries, it's just an art form. In Angola, it can be dangerous. Rapper MCK works on his songs in a hidden studio in Luanda.
Chamado a tribunal, acusado de golpista, barrado no aeroporto, feito terrorista. A bofia me pediu para ter cuidado, eu disse eu sou cuidado, investigo a voz do ar, não tenho fama de bandido. Sempre fui artista, só falo, não mato, sou rapper de ativista, não calo, sou chato, filósofo e jurista.
MCK, alias Katrogi Nanga Luamba, denounces police violence and poverty. He studied philosophy and uses music to express his desire for democracy in an authoritarian country.
O sonho é de mudança. Eu não penso, por exemplo, em
My dream is for the country to change. I don't want to emigrate. I want to stay here in Angola and work towards improving my country. I would like to see an Angola with happier people, people that are proud to live here.
Uma Angola onde as pessoas podem ser felizes e se orgulharem de cá viver.
The rapper grew up in the Makuluso slum in Angola's capital, Luanda. Everyone here knows him. He used to sell clothes on the streets and then began rapping. His experiences in the slums have influenced his lyrics. It is really hard. If you manage to escape drugs and crime as a 20-year-old, then you're effectively a hero here. But you can do it if you believe in yourself and invest in your life. I'm trying to give something back to this neighborhood. Today he wants to perform in Luanda together with his friend and rapper Luati Bairaun, who was imprisoned for a year, accused of planning a rebellion against the president. Even though the government has consistently banned their concerts in the past, they're optimistic this time. They've already found a venue. MCK never gives up. He won't budge an inch from his message. He insists on his values. If he didn't do that, he would definitely be able to perform in front of larger audiences, but he won't compromise. But the state, too, is uncompromising. It bans the concert just before it begins. MCK doesn't give up. He's determined to make his fans happy, so he spontaneously organizes a rap session in his old neighborhood.
Estamos em paz, quero direitos iguais desses betinhos que andavam lá fora. Sem sacrifício, riquinhos de agora. Prefiro morrer a ti, também quero paz no prato. Tudo que eu quero é paz no prato. Dignidade e paz no prato, tá todo. Prefiro morrer a tiro do que morrer à fome, irmãos. A disparidade é enorme, vivemos presos nessa armadilha, condenados a ser bravos.
His song O Pais do Pai Banana is a parable about Angola's President Dos Santos, who has ruled the country since 1979. The president's family controls all the businesses in the country, so there's clearly a conflict of interest. This song is about how a minority are making a ton of money from the majority of people who keep getting poorer. And MCK won't put up with that. He refuses to keep quiet.
And finally, in Kenya, there is this group called the Ghetto Classics. They can turn any song into an orchestra. Take a look.
Surprising sounds coming out of Korogochu. Celine Akumu and her fellow musicians can transform any song into orchestral music. But Ghetto Classics is more than just a unique orchestra in one of Nairobi's largest slums.
Ghetto Classics is my second family. Yeah, we all stay here like brothers and sisters. Yeah, so maybe if I'm bored at home and I want to relax and have fun, I just come here.
Growing up in Korogocho is tough, but, says Celine, the worst part is the stigma attached to it. She and her fellow musicians have discovered a way to earn dignity and respect.
Sometimes how people talk, yeah, you know, maybe you're from the slums, so you can't do anything. So you find it like it's eating me inside. Yeah, so that's the thing that I want to change.
Celine is 18 and lives with her family. The orchestra is voluntary, so she earns money teaching music. Giving young people perspectives is what organisers set out to do, even though people didn't understand at first.
When we first started, everyone thought we were crazy. What's this classical music nonsense, you know, as opposed to genge or, you know, hip hop or something cool and groovy. And so the kids, I remember our first concert here, we did some excerpts from Handel's Messiah, and we were like, we could have landed from Mars.
But the idea took off with funding from the Kenyan Art of Music Foundation.
I don't think that all the kids who are in our program will necessarily be first-class musicians or the best musicians around. But somebody like Celine, for instance, she is extremely talented. And actually, I feel it's a shame that Celine didn't come into our program when she was much younger, because perhaps if we had met her when she was 8 or 9, who knows what could have come out of this.
And there's still plenty of young talent among Korogocho's 300,000 inhabitants. Celine says Ghetto Classics is a lot more than just a career opportunity.
Music has enabled me to realize myself and know who I am and what I want in future. So at least it has made me travel a lot and meet different people. So I think music has opened my eyes to see and to know what I want.
Celine has become a role model for others here. Discipline and teamwork are essential for any career, and there is hardly a better way to learn that in Korogocho than through the Ghetto Classics Orchestra.
That's all, people. May your week be filled with dancing, singing, and drumming like today's episode. I'm Femina Jefe. See you next time. Bye.
Ṣẹ́gun fún mi. Ó ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Gbogbo ilé lẹ fi tó gift. Mo rí ikọ̀ tún ni. Mo sọ fún ẹ lójoojúmọ́ pé gbogbo tó ń ṣe fún mi, ọmọ á ṣe fún ẹ nílọ́po. Abiyamọ ayé, abiyamọ ọ̀run, wọ́n súre fún mi. Ìbàjẹ́ kéré ó tóbi kò ní kàn ẹ́. Ọmọ òní ní kò gbé tiwa kò ń gé jẹ. Ọmọ òní tí ẹ lọ síbi tó ò lérò. Ní gbogbo ọjọ́ ayé ẹ ò ní rí bi. Bí wọ́n bá ń pín wàhálà ìdààmú, ò tiẹ̀ ní rówó rà. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, ò ní kábàámọ̀. Ẹni tó máa bá ṣe tó máa kó bá ìgbé ayé ẹ kò ní bẹ́ẹ̀ rìn, wọn náà ò ní bá rìn. Ọmọ adùn ẹnu, àbùkù ò ní kàn ẹ́ o. Ayé ò ní rí ẹ mú o. Mo sọ fún ẹni tinútinú tọkùtọkù. Lọ́lá ọyàn méjèèjì tó mú nígbà yà ni. Mo súre fún ẹ, eré àmú ẹ. Abiyamọ ayé, abiyamọ ọ̀run, wọ́n súre fún ẹ. Ó yẹ sáré gbé bàbá wọlé, ó ti ṣú ara, ó ti tọ́ ara, kò ní jẹ́ tiẹ̀. Wọnú ògo tuntun lọ, Olúwaṣẹ́gun. Wọnú ògo tuntun lọ. Ó yá wọnú ògo tuntun lọ. Wọnú ògo tuntun. Ẹlẹ́dàá mi.
Mami, ẹ tà mí yín kọ́.
Ṣé ìwọ ti rókun tó gbẹ̀rí? O ti rí ọ̀sà kó gbẹ̀rí? Kò lè gbẹ́ndì.
Àmímà.
Àwọn olè ń sọ̀rọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àtàwọn ọ̀rẹ́ mi.
Àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ ó yá fi sí spíkà.
Wọ́n ń gbọ́ yín.
Ní ẹ̀bùn ńlá tọ́mọ mi gbé wá fèmí yìí. Ọlọ́run á ràn yín lọ́wọ́, ẹ̀yin náà lè ṣerú ẹ̀ fáwọn.
Ẹ ṣàmì mo tún ṣàdúrà.
Get 10 times your recharge value to call and browse anyhow. Recharge with *220 star the pin hash to enjoy this offer. Available to new and existing subscribers.
Mr. Anansa, èmi ń gbàdúrà, ìwọ ń polówó ọjà, ìwọ náà gborí ẹ̀ wá kó wá gbàdúrà. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, á dáa fún ẹ. Ṣé orí bó ti ń tajà fẹ́ lòmíì? Àwọn máa sìn ìwọ náà àdìrú wà dìgbà, ayé àdára, ò ní dààmú.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Nigerian film industry, popularly known as Nollywood, is one of the largest export sectors in Nigeria. Nigerian movies are largely popular in Africa, where they currently outsell Hollywood films. As of 2014, Nollywood was worth $5.1 billion and makes up 5% of Nigeria's GDP. Over the years, Nollywood has embraced technology in distributing Nigerian movies with the advent and popularity of platforms such as Iroko TV, Scene One TV, and dedicated Nollywood YouTube channels. In addition, Nollywood has sold out more movies in Nigerian cinemas than Hollywood movies. While we await a more recent report on Nigeria's movie industry GDP, one can naturally expect an uphill climb with what the layman can clearly see.
The industry has evolved. We have a lot of upcoming young, beautiful, well-knowledgeable actresses. I call them actors as well.
Nollywood is an industry that comprises male and female actors. We have also seen the rise of female directors and producers in the last 2 to 3 years and can attest to their successes. Gender inequality in Nigeria is influenced by different cultures and beliefs. In most parts of Nigeria, women are considered subordinate to their male counterparts, especially in northern Nigeria. So, is gender inequality present in Nollywood?
It's vice versa. It's same. Men get roles, women get roles. It's actually better now. Before it was most men had the roles way back. But now it's a lot better. In fact, I think women, the ladies have more roles than the men now.
I think both sexes actually get opportunities, because like there was a movie without the other sex, you know, because a love story, you can't play like a love story with like 2 guys. It actually has to be like a girl and a guy.
Are men or women being marginalized? Do men have more opportunities than women?
A lot of women are in the industry. I think what we lack is a lot more men in industry, because it's really difficult casting, finding the right guy. And it is when you're trying to cast for a male character that you realize that we don't even have enough men.
I do not think that Nollywood discriminates against gender. There are other areas of discrimination, but gender isn't necessarily amongst them.
What is the disparity in earnings for a male lead role and a female lead role? How are the figures decided?
Prices vary based on a lot of things, based on popularity, based on the class of the actor. So you have the A-list, the B-list, the C-list, and what have you. But the prices are basically influenced by popularity and how celebrated the actor is.
As for pay disparity, nobody thinks they're getting paid what they should get paid.
Most fans are of the opinion that there is a gender bias in Nollywood, and going by the lifestyle portrayed by most Nollywood actresses on social media, it seems like they earn more money than their male counterparts. However, people are quick to raise eyebrows when an actress acquires and flaunts luxury items that range from the latest car to buying a mansion. Plus TV Africa's team spoke to the actors, and this is what they had to say.
I wouldn't say that, okay, female make more money than male guys, like male actors and everything, but I would say to each his own. You know, people actually invest in stuff. You know, I mean, like myself, besides acting, I have like 2 businesses as well. I run a security company, and I'm also into furniture as well.
Nollywood is not a place you come to make a fortune. Nollywood is the place you come to get fame, and then you hustle the fame into fortune.
There is something called packaging. And even the Bible says God looks at the heart, man looks at the outward. So therefore, if you are packaged in a certain way, you will be approached and treated in that way.
Because of the economic situation we find ourselves in, both the men and the women in Nollywood have other things that they do aside from apart from acting. So most women, you know, because of the way they have more freebies coming from people who love them online. It works both ways. I see a lot of male actors who look amazingly, in fact, they look actually very beautiful. I would say not just handsome, but they're beautiful and attractive. So I also have a lot of women who love them and probably treat them to a few gifts here and there. So it just works both ways.
Having listened to the actors, it's really difficult to say there is gender inequality in Nollywood.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on Plus TV Africa. You are watching Nigeria Decides. My name is Mary Ann Okon and co-anchoring with me is
David Alabi, and today on the show we'll be talking about Onogan's suspension and the power sector in Nigeria.
Yes. The Onogan issue is not going away anytime soon. It seems to just literally stay in the news.
And the latest that we have is that the Code of Conduct Tribunal sitting in Abuja has suspended any further proceeding indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Well, of course, and there have been several reactions to Mr. President's move. Of course, let's not forget the UK, the EU put out a statement saying that they were worried about this move by Mr. President. And of course, there was a response from the federal government.
And we also have a new reveal from SAN Agbakoba as well, is having a stance on that, saying that, well, the new acting CJN, well, this action of accepting to be an acting CJN doesn't come off right in his own perspective.
Of course, the SDP presidential candidate, Mr. Donald Duke, actually did say right here in the studio of Plus TV Africa that he called it embarrassing, the fact that he accepted, to take that place. In fact, he said more like he took advantage of the situation, which is for him unacceptable. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about decency and politics and the judiciary.
But of course, when it comes to the law and actions around the constitution or the law, I mean, decency should be a #1 priority, of course.
And the law takes precedence. We'll definitely be following all of the legal tendons here. And we are also going to be looking at the power sector in Nigeria. Every Nigerian understands, well, we are the government of ourselves.
I mean, even a child that was born yesterday knows NEPA, so of course, it's an issue that we're going to be looking at. But first, we have to go for the news, and when we come back, we'll start Nigeria Decides in earnest.
Most definitely. The news coming up shortly.
You global star, you local rapper, you go down low. You swag, you go blow.
Yeah, making an Afrobeat.
You bring the heat, you boom, boom. You the coolest kid in Africa. You shocky, you dab, you hustle. You the voice of the streets. You Afrobeat.
Hello there, and many thanks for joining us on the News on the Hour and Plus TV Africa. Here are the stories making headlines. I am Mary Ann Okon. The Code of Conduct Tribunal on Monday adjourned indefinitely the trial of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, who was suspended on Friday by President Muhammadu Buhari. Onnoghen was charged before the tribunal by the Code of Conduct Bureau over non-declaration of assets allegation. Buhari also swore in acting CJN on Friday, Mr. Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad. A former president of Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, SAN, says he has submitted a petition against Justice Tanko Muhammad, who was appointed last Friday as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria by President Muhammadu Buhari. In a statement from his chambers on Monday, Agbakoba said he submitted his petition to the National Judicial Council, asking it to determine the propriety of Justice Muhammad accepting to be sworn in by the President in place of the suspended CJN Justice Walter Onnoghen. Meanwhile, the anti-corruption group Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has given the NJC till Thursday to take over Onnoghen's case and look into the false asset declaration allegations levelled against him. SERAP, in a statement by its senior legal advisor, Bamishokwe Adeyanju, asked Justice Muhammad to rescue himself from the case, adding that if the allegation against Justice Onnoghen were established after the investigation by the NJC, the CJN should be handed over to the relevant anti-graft agency for prosecution. 67 political parties on Monday have described as illegal and unconstitutional the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, by the federal government. The parties, including the People's Democratic Party and the Social Democratic Party, said like every other concerned stakeholder, the Nigerians They were very disturbed by the illegal suspension of the CJN and the swearing-in of an acting CJN, saying both actions are illegal and foreign to our constitution. The improper process adopted by President Muhammadu Buhari in suspending the CJN and in appointing Justice Tanko Muhammad as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria is seen by a majority of Nigerians as based on an improperly obtained order of Code of Conduct Tribunal, thus making it illegal, they added. News just reaching us say that members of the Nigerian Bar Association, the National Interest Defenders and lawyers in the defense of democracy are protesting the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onnoghen, at the NBA Secretariat in Abuja. President Muhammadu Buhari suspended Onnoghen and swore in Justice Tanko Muhammad as replacement on Friday. The protesters carried placards of various inscriptions, including Tanko Muhammad, stop parading yourself as CJN. NBA must act now by ordering lawyers to down tools. Amechi, El-Rufai, Akpabio, Malami, APC, brains behind Onnoghen's trial. NJC must reconvene now and expel Justice Tanko Muhammad, amongst others.
Never at a time like this have we experienced, this kind of assault on the fundamental law of this country. And the custodians of law, and I refer to lawyers in this case, must be the ones to meet and then determine the way forward. And in this particular case, to the best of my knowledge, the NBA is requesting that there be outright reversal of the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria because it violates the fundamental law of the land. It destroys the very foundation upon which Nigeria is built, and it is worrisome and troublesome for us at this moment.
Even if the CJN has committed a serious offense, you need to go through the normal procedure to bring him to book. You do not just wake up arbitrarily and then tell us that the tribunal gave you an order and then acting on that order you remove our CJN. It's not heard of anywhere in this world, and we are saying no to that kind of behavior.
Let it be known that we reject in its entirety the purported and unconstitutional suspension of the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we demand that all legal processes must be followed to ensure that this constitutional breach is reversed.
In advanced countries, people, even if it is an allegation, they will resign honorably. But in this case, he doesn't want to resign. Why? Why will one man hold us to ransom? Why? For what reason? A country of 180 million, one man will just be a problem for us? No, we reject that. We want him to resign or sack. He should be sacked.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, reacting to the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, has said that Nigeria is passing through difficult times with the recent development in the country. Speaking during a media conference at Abuja, he warned the All Progressive Congress and the Muhammadu Buhari government to stop the acts that could truncate Nigeria's democracy. He warned that the CJN suspension was an attack on the judiciary and could precipitate a constitutional crisis that would derail Nigeria's democracy. Following allegations that the case against the CJN was much more than a misconduct, the federal government has yet again defended the action of the President Muhammadu Buhari for suspending the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, at a press briefing in Abuja on Monday, said that there were suspicious transactions running into millions of dollars, which it said were traced into the suspended CJN's personal account. He said these were all undeclared and improperly declared as required by the law. The Ekiti State Governorship Election Tribunal sitting in Abuja has upheld the victory of the All Progressive Congress and its candidates in the last governorship elections in the state, Kayode Fayemi. The Justice Sulaiman Belgore-led tribunal, in a judgment that lasted for about 5 hours on Monday, dismissed the petition by the PDP that its candidate Kolakbo Olushola on the grounds that they failed to prove their case. Justice Belgore, who read the judgment, found that the evidence led by the petitioners was insufficient to prove their claim that the election was held in substantial non-compliance with the Electoral Act. The Joint Health Sector Unions JHESU on Monday gave the federal government at January 31 deadline to resolve all disputes and meet all unions' outstanding demands or face industrial action. JHESU's national chairman Josiah Bayo-Belimoye said that the government had failed to adjust college skills for its members. Mr. Moye also said that the government had withheld April and May salaries of 2018 of some union members that participated in the last strike. The 5 affirmative unions of JHESU are the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Nigeria Union of Allied Health Professionals, and the Medical and Health Workers Union. Other demands by JHESU include the age-long struggle for recognition of consultancy cadre for eligible health workers and other outstanding allowances. 3 months after going on strike, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, says it's still consulting with its members over the offers made by the federal government. The union's national president, Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, said they would meet with officials of the government within the week. Professor Ogunyemi said ASU is expected to be involved in another round of meeting with the government within 1 week, adding that he expects a positive outcome. The university teachers have been on strike since November 4, 2018 over alleged non-implementation of agreements it entered into with the federal government in 2009 and 2017. The demands are on better welfare package and improved teaching and learning environment, among other issues. The organized private sector, a body of employers in the private sector of the economy, have said it agrees with a new minimum wage of 30,000 naira as recommended by a tripartite committee set up by President Muhammadu Buhari. The position was made known at the public hearing organized by the House of Representatives on the new minimum wage bill presented by President Muhammadu Buhari last week. Moving to stories reaching us from across Africa, according to an updated death toll by the presidency on Monday, 3 students and a police officer died in Southeastern Democratic Republic of Congo during weekend clashes at a protest over water, power outages and a hike in school fees. The violence was sparked after a large area including Lubumbashi University was left without water and electricity for 3 days because of damage caused to vital cables and pipes by torrential rains. Clash broke out on Sunday after police used tear gas and warning shots to try to disperse crowds of students returning from the governor's residence in Upper Katanga. The police officer who ordered to shoot the peaceful students without warning will be brought before a military court to face the rigor of the law. A statement said and added that increases in academic fees paid by the university's 10,000 students has been suspended. Water and electricity supplies have been restored to the university campus, according to students. The news continues after this short break. Stay with us. The U.S. government reopened Monday with about 800,000 federal workers returning after a 35-day shutdown as lawmakers geared up for talks to avoid another standoff before funding runs out again in 3 weeks. Federal workers are expected to get paid this week for the 5 weeks of missed paychecks. Federal contractors and business that relied on federal workers' business, however, face huge losses, although some lawmakers are pushing legislation to pay contractors back as well. Trump and the Congress reached a deal to reopen roughly 1/4 of the government that had been closed despite the president not getting the $5.7 billion he had demanded to build his long-promised wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Democrats are eager to capitalize on their political victory, oppose any border wall money, but say they back additional funding for border security measures such as increased technology and border patrol agents. Up next is our business news.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left, yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
And in business, the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has said since the commencement of operations, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, about 1 trillion naira had been recovered from debtors of banks. She said this in Abuja while inaugurating the board of AMCON. According to Zainab, out of the recovered amount, cash accounted for 60%, while non-cash assets such as properties and equity securities accounted for the balance of 40%. Adding to this, she said over the same period, AMCON's debt repayment to CBN was over 1 trillion naira, and its total debt obligation to the CBN stood in the excess of 5 trillion naira. In a quote, she said, at inception, the corporation acquired over 12,000 non-performing loans worth approximately 3.7 trillion naira from 22 commercial banks, injected 22 trillion naira as financial accommodation to 10 banks. The direct impact of that action is seen in the protection of about 3.6 trillion naira depositors' funds, and approximately 14,000 jobs were saved. And that's it on the news this hour. We will return with more news, but now we go on to our election studios as Nigeria decides. Stay tuned.
We do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, they go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye. Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
That's the Brazilian who, with the longer blades that Oscar wasn't too impressed with. 200 meters, but we must stress, absolutely legal.
Sounds of the surf.
Yeah. Now that he's a hater, I don't want no bad energy. Man get used by radar, can't see my enemy.
And this time they are away, and Peacock goes away strongly.
She wants a man from London, she wants a fella with felonies. That's not doing my team. There's no I in it, I bring it on my team. Just when they saw my team, moving the bounce when they saw my team. Who do you wanna never know? Don't be a sheep when you can be a gold. Great, it's about time and you never know. Don't show up to my show.
This is
Got no
absolutely marvelous.
energy.
That is how we get looped into a cycle of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That cycle of failure is unsustainable and it has to end now.
Perfection Train is back.
They take us to the bush and start asking us to call our people to send money.
What can be done as an intervention for them right now to stop abuse of all children?
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
We do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
template for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Nigeria Decides. For a week now, the case of the suspended CJN has been on the burner with the arguments and counter-arguments for and against this case. Now, it's something that we all have been looking at. Our eyes are on it.
Definitely. And following allegations that the case against the CJN was much more than a misconduct, the federal government of Nigeria has yet again defended the action of President Buhari for suspending the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoge. Now, to look at this story and help us understand what the law says, well, we have Obi Ajegbo, legal practitioner, as well as Najib Bello, political affairs analyst. Thank you very much, lady, gentlemen.
Thank you for joining us. Interestingly, as we just rolled out on our news, the Agbakoba has actually submitted a petition against, the CJN and Tanko Muhammad. Let me just read a little bit of it. In his statement from his chambers, he submitted his petition to the National Judicial Council, asking it to determine the propriety of Justice Muhammad accepting to be sworn in by the President in place of the suspended CJN Justice Walter Onoge. In other words, he's questioning the I don't know,
legal decency.
Not necessarily. Let's not bring legality into it. Just the sheer decency that comes with that office in the first instance. Now, Ms. Obi, you obviously are a legal practitioner, so you'd obviously know what to say about this.
This goes beyond decency. From reports, from records that I have read, Justice Mohammed Tanko sat with the bar, with the NJC, to decide over a similar case in Abia State, whereby the CJ was removed by the governor and another CJ was appointed. And what did they decide? They told the new CJ in quotes to step down. And I believe they sacked her. And then they now reinstated the other one and then took action against that one after reviewing her case. So there's already precedent. It's not done. What we have now is we have 2 CJs and it's not done. Anyway, we don't have 2 CJs, we have 1 CJ.
And the other?
And the other.
The other is what?
The other is, I don't know.
Najib, you obviously are like the average Nigerian. You are watching all of this play out like a Nollywood movie. What's your take?
My take is that as it is right now, there should be action against Buhari's new CJ, who is claiming to be the CJ, because we have to be careful by calling that man the new CJN. He really is not. The CJN is still Walter Onoge, and there must be action taken against him. Like she said, the case of Abia, we know about the case of Abia. This man was part of the NJC that decided that, oh, this is a wrong thing to do. And the judge who even took up that position, who was appointed after the other judge, was sanctioned, and he was part of those who sanctioned. So he should be facing sanctions too. And people are not thinking, if they are saying, oh, Buhari had to take action because, like Lai Mohammed has claimed now, they saw millions.
That's the latest response.
Lots of millions in the CJ's account.
That is gossip.
That is just hearsay.
That is gossip.
At the end of the day, let's even assume that at the end of the day, they find the CJN guilty of these crimes of corruption. What about Buhari, who has removed illegally, unconstitutionally removed the CJN? What is the punishment?
Who determines the consequence?
Most
definitely. Well, Najib, Obi, we have a video clip here coming up shortly. A response from Donald Duke. You had that conversation with him, and some interesting response, right?
Yes, over that removal, because he's also a legal practitioner before a politician. So we had these few words to say. Let's go to that clip by the SDP presidential candidate.
I'm a lawyer, first and foremost. It is the most stupendous thing I've heard in my 36 years as a lawyer. It's unheard of for a president to suspend a chief judge. I mean, even in a dictatorship, it's not done. Throughout almost 38 years of military rule, no military precedent suspended, let alone removed a CJN in this country. It never happened. There is a process that you take. And in the the High Court made a ruling, the Appeal Court made a ruling, the government is disobeying the ruling. But I tell you, what I find most embarrassing about all this is that a justice of the Supreme Court agreed to be sworn in his place. It is sad that a fellow colleague would take advantage of this. It just shows that there's no honor.
He says, it shows us there's no honor. That's the word I was trying to get, earlier on. So then it has to be some honor in this, with or without the law?
There's a code.
Okay.
Being a judge is not selling, it's not like selling tomato.
Okay, now Sarah is playing a little bit of advisory role now. It's saying that, well, Justice Tanko Muhammad has to recuse himself from this whole case. And if the allegations against the CJN hold weight, then an anti-graft agency is supposed to take up the matter. What's your stance on that call from Sarah?
The rule is, according to Section 292, before you can remove a CJ, you have to take it before the NJC. It is in our constitution. Now the NJC would investigate. And in all fairness to the NJC, the cases that have been brought up before, they have investigated it thoroughly without fear or bias. Do you understand? So the NJC will investigate. After the investigation, they will recommend either a dismissal, a retirement, or the anti-graft agency too. But none of this process has been followed.
Now, Najib, as well, you listened to Donald Duke speaking there. The PDP has also said, well, this move of suspension is illegal and foreign to our constitution. Yes. Do you tally with all of this stance from Donald Duke to Sarah and PDP?
It's not something that is hard to decipher. It is there written in the constitution. The president cannot do it. I was saying that if Onogen was a very tough person or a stubborn person like Buhari, he too would suspend the president and maybe appoint Dino Melaye, since we all want to act like we don't know.
Well, that would be a state of chaos, and we don't want chaos.
So it's as crazy as that. It's as crazy as the CJN waking up one day and saying, I've suspended the president, or Saraki waking up one day and saying, I've suspended Buhari and appointed, maybe Oshibanjo. That's how crazy it is. It does not happen anywhere. And why we were looking at Buhari, because he's not a lawyer, he's not a judge. But when we saw Tanko come up to be appointed, it was very troubling. Unusual. This is a judge who is sitting at the highest council, who should know more than anybody else. It's very worrying.
It just makes me wonder, because as a little girl, when we were in school, we taught government, the basics was that separation of powers. You had these three arms of government working independently, but then of course they have a synergy of sorts, one not higher than the other, or working hand in hand. So if we are having the executive somewhat infringe on the rights of the judiciary, which is supposedly I hope, the hope of the common man, the last hope for the common man. Where do we go from here?
Well, what we're having now is a constitutional crisis, because since the supposed CJ, acting CJ, was not properly, it is the NJC that would have recommended him to the presidency as the next senior person to Onoge, assuming Onoge has been found wanting. And since he has not been recommended, so he doesn't have, and those tribunal people that he saw in is null and void and of no consequence.
So it's an infraction.
Yes, it is a political crisis, because if you have an election and you table it before those election tribunal, you cannot go. I would not go before those tribunal, because the basis of which they were set up is negated, is null and void. Sorry, can I say something? They've been saying that the people have been talking about the Interpretation Act, that the Interpretation Act gives the president the right to suspend. No. The Interpretation Act cannot override the Constitution.
Can you say that again? Because we need to be clear. So you're saying that an act cannot supersede the powers that lie in the Constitution?
It is an Interpretation Act. It interprets the Constitution.
Oh.
Do you understand?
Okay.
So it cannot override Section 292, which says that the president cannot remove without the NJC.
Let's talk a little bit more from the security perspective of things now. We heard reports today that the Supreme Court was sealed off by some security operatives once again, away from the whole display at the National Assembly sometime last year and a whole lot more. We are seeing security operatives also come into focus. Does the meddling or the use of security operatives anytime there is some sort of politicking or action that has to power play that has to take place, the security come in as the puppet? Is this part of their primary arrangement?
This should not be so. The police is for everybody. That is why people have been clamoring for state police.
But are you surprised that the acting CJN had already heard about 10 cases while the whole seal-off was going on?
You see, when people are calling for Onoge's resignation, I said he should not resign. He should fight this. It's a matter of integrity. It's a matter of honor, because then his legacy for his children will be that he was a criminal. Nobody has investigated. Nobody has found him wanting. Whatever the supposed Justice Mohammed Tanko is doing, he's on his own. He's on a frolic. Until the NJC speaks otherwise, he's on a frolic.
Najib,
as at 7 a.m. early in the morning, security operatives were on standby, seal off any access. Meanwhile, there are hearings going on at the Supreme Court.
Yes, the thing is, this is the problem with the executive having control of all these security agencies. With the Senate and the House of Assembly, House of Reps, we saw the same thing happen. So it's like the executive the president wants to wield the kind of force he used to wield as a military head of state. And the fact that he has the security agents under him, he feels he can use this. That's the main reason why he's swearing in his own personal CJ. If he did not have powers to back it up, if he did not have guns to scare people away, he would not be doing this thing. And I think those are the reasons why we have to review our constitution, to say it's these forces will be under this. I think it's best the police is under the judiciary. I think it's best. Of course, they are the ones who sign warrants and other things like that, but they should have more control rather than having the president. For us, it doesn't work. The way Nigeria is, it doesn't work.
Marianne, and you know, everybody seems to be surprised at the way the drama, if I'm permitted to use that word, is unfolding. First and foremost, as the acting seat or the Tanko Mohammed, Justice Tanko Mohammed was sworn in, we had some judges as well sworn in for the election tribunal. And then the next thing again, while the seal-off is going on, You also hear
private hearings
going on, well, not necessarily private, but hearings are continuing. What do you think we should make of this character from the acting CJ since his appointment? Because at the end of the day, you said he should be in a better position to know better when it comes to following due process.
I'll just see him as a desperate man. A man who wants power but doesn't want to wait for his time. A man who doesn't care whose ox is God. A man who feels he must make history, but the history is he wants to make history, but history is not making him.
Okay, Najib, quickly, because you mentioned something about investigations not being done. I think she mentioned about investigations not being done and due process not being
followed.
This is not the first time, by the way, that we're seeing these kind of shoddy media trials and quick actions. Do you think that what is happening now in closing, because we don't have time, might affect 2019 elections?
It's possible. It's possible because people are beginning to protest. Nigerians are not just sitting around allowing this go on. The lawyers, NBA is protesting. There are even regular citizens are protesting in Enugu, in Calabar, and some are expected to also protest in Lagos. If this thing builds up, it may cause problems for INEC. It may cause problems for the government in general. And I don't know if they've calculated this, if the presidency or the executive, they've calculated this, but there will be issues.
Unfortunately,
Obi.
All right.
Do you think we are going to have the elections hold on February 16th?
I think we're headed for a constitutional crisis. And I'm beginning to doubt if the elections will hold February 16th. Honestly doubt it. But let us see. Who knows if the government does a U-turn, which I doubt, or whatever the NJC decides.
Well, everybody really thinks that the timing is just not right. And
that made me question if the executive is really sincere about wanting to have an election on February 16th.
But do we now have to have this frosty relationship between the executive and then the judiciary or legislature? I can't seem to peg any sort of
It's something that we really can't put our fingers on, but we want to thank you very much, Najib, for being here. Najib Bello is a political affairs analyst, and of course, Obi Ajegbo is a legal practitioner. We'll keep our fingers crossed and watch, the stories unfold. Okay. Thank you.
And we'll continue to push for free, fair, credible elections, most definitely. Thank you very much, ladies, gentlemen. Good evening.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, shall we have your thoughts on the former Chief Justice of Nigeria's case on any of our social media platforms? And we'll take a quick break and be right back. That's at Plus TV Africa on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as Facebook.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
I am gap-toothed black girl, back corner of class, scribbling left-handed poetry on blank paper. Save the school's curriculum for later. I am overflowing tales by moonlight, that informal education. Trickling off the tip of my grandmother's tongue, you will find my mother's tongue here. A fast and fluent Yoruba, crisscrossing English, hidden messages in prose and proverbs call it Yorubanglish. And I am the miracle of melody, nestled deep in the groove of a rich high life rhythm, a child of the marriage of hip hop and Afro beats, and you can hear our voices pulsing beneath the skin of a talking drum, commanding hips to move without caution. And I am sky high, gele, bold and beautiful. We redefine fashion, wear our stories around our necks and from our ears, so we never forget the voices of our ancestors. This heritage, this heartbeat, this is who I am. Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Osuke.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Event is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, right? No question. He's a living legend.
No, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, no.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
That is how we get looped into a cycle of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That cycle of failure is unsustainable and it has to end now.
Perfection Train is back.
They take us to the bush and start asking us to call our people to send money.
What can be done as an intervention for them right now to stop abuse of all children?
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Brazilian who, with the longer blades that Austria wasn't too impressed with. 200 meters, but we must stress, absolutely legal.
Sounds of the surf.
Yeah. Now that he's a hater, I don't want no bad energy. Man get used by radar, but can't see my enemy.
And this time they are away, and Peacock goes away strongly.
She wants a man from London, she wants a fella with felonies. That's not being my team. There's no I in it, I bring it on my team. Just miss so much of team. Don't be a sheep when you can be bold to break. It's about time and you never know. Don't show up to my show.
This is
Got no
absolutely marvelous.
energy. Energy. Alright. Energy. Okay. Energy.
You're watching Plus TV Africa, and this is Tea Time.
I loved the energy when I came in here. It was so positive. I was like, I can live here.
My real names are Akbofio Fobo, Akbolobo Mere.
I think my father is a comedian because most times when he calls me, he's like, yo, make sure you use condom, you know, them girls out there.
So are you telling me I should have shot my shots?
Ife, you are my younger brother.
Age is nothing but a number. What? I'm a vampire.
I believe in equal rights for women, and I also believe that a man is the head of the house, so we need to draw our limits somewhere.
It feels so good. Now can I do my jam now?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
We do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
500 naira they collect them.
No talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to. Today's top stories are...
And the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. I'm here at Yunus Bashorin Street, where the
fire destroyed our transformer complete.
Beat you to the lowest level you can.
This is Plus TV Africa. The big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
The electricity in Nigeria still remains a challenge, which the government of the Federation had made frantic efforts to resolve since the restoration of democracy in May 1999. Well, it seems far from being over, if you ask me. But what has been done? What can be done to improve power? Joining us this evening to talk about it, we have Najib Bello, who has been with us. He's a public affairs analyst. And of course, we have Dr. Wiba Boa. He's the CEO, All On, and he's also an energy expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Now, our first question. In your assessment, from the days of NESCO to NEPA to PHCN and 5 years down the line, privatization of the Nigerian power sector, how would you rate it in your scorecard? The level of performance we've seen where we're talking power in Nigeria.
It's abysmal. It's not worth mentioning. 4,500 megawatts. That's what we are delivering right now. No matter what they say we are generating or we are transmitting, what we are delivering is about 4,500 megawatts to almost 200 million people, who should have at least, or the basic average, 200,000 megawatts. It's not worth mentioning at all. It's
and
almost
even talking
inexistent.
about 4,500 sometime.
It drops to 3,900. Yeah.
So it's pretty sharp.
On the average, let's say 3,900, 4,000. We're just saying the best we've seen.
Well,
4,500. It's terrible.
Wiba, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, has said Nigeria is churning out about 7,000 megawatts of power, and that was as at reports from last year. And it says, well, there's no more issue with power generation. It now has to do with distribution. But in your assessment, being an energy expert, how would you rate Nigeria's power sector?
Well, I think following on what my colleague here said, we should have, if you take the rule of thumb, it should be about 1,000 megawatts per million people. So we should have 200,000 megawatts. And that's just to be on the same level with South Africa or Trinidad and Tobago, right? And we are at 4,000 on a good day. And of that 4,000, how much, okay, only 3,000 actually goes to the discos, and only 2,000 gets to the customers, and only 1,000 is paid for. So even if you go all the way down, it gets even worse and worse. We actually generate in Nigeria a lot more power with diesel generators that are on, for individual households and businesses than the actual national grid does. The estimate for Lagos is that Lagos gets 700 megawatts from the grid, and 18,000 megawatts is self-generated.
Off the grid.
Is off the grid already. But that's with diesel generators, which is expensive, environmentally unfriendly, noisy, unreliable. So what's happening now is that there's the beginning of a movement towards cleaner distributed energy. And I think that's where the solution will be.
But if we have moved from years down the line with great blue papers and, interesting seminars and conferences, political promises thrown out there, hoping for a better electricity supply, and we're still where we are today. What do you think the challenge is? I mean, from an expert's point of view, what do you think the challenge is? Why are we still running around in circles?
Right. So let's actually go back to the beginning. The first company you mentioned was NESCO, the Nigeria Electric Supply Company, which was started on the plateau in the area of Jos, where I grew up, in 1929. The first hydro dam was put up there in 1923 to power the tin mines, and then in 1929 the company was formed. That company actually still exists. 90 years later, they're still delivering power, 24/7 power, to 7 local governments in Plateau State where people do not need generators.
But we're still using the same transformers and the same, everything still remains the same. We haven't had strong investment or commitment.
But in that company, NESCO, which is private and has always been privately owned, it has continuously delivered reliable power using the same turbines, the same everything from almost 90 years ago. So the point is, if they can do it, why can't we do it for the whole country?
Exactly.
The difference is they are private. The rest of the power sector has been way too, the government has been way too involved.
Well, you understand that the Nigerian power sector has been privatized, so we should have the same results.
Partially privatized.
Yes.
Well, because the government still owns a percentage, but then, I mean, if
and
you
they
have...
own the transmission company.
I think where we have this national problem with electricity is where the government wants to fix the price of electricity. Nobody will come to Nigeria and generate 10,000 megawatts of electricity when they know the government can wake up any day and say you have to sell 1 kilowatt for maybe 5 naira or 10 naira. They want to be able to sell on the basis of their costs and the profits they are looking at. That is one major problem that I see. That's why a lot of people are not saying, oh, Nigeria needs electricity, let's just go there and generate a lot and sell.
So you're saying that maybe the government needs to totally hands off.
Exactly.
Is this detail for what happens in the countries that you mentioned, like Trinidad and Tobago and South Africa? Is it literally a privatized, 100% privatized sector?
Well, the government, in any sector like power, the government does have to have some kind of role as a regulator.
Okay.
But I think here the on-grid sector is overregulated in that, the price controls, which are actually not commercial and not market-oriented. The other part is the government still owns the transmission company. So it would be like when we were giving out mobile licenses 20 years ago, the mobile companies were told, oh, but you have to use NITEL infrastructure. It would have failed completely. So it wasn't done completely, and then now the government is too, the price control is too much. However, at the same time, the government has put in place the regulation needed to launch the off-grid energy sector, and that's actually where the promise lies.
That's where the promise lies, but we still have some inhibitions and a whole lot more to deal with there. But shortly, we have a video clip. We spoke with the General Secretary of the Nigeria Union of Electricity Employees, Joe Ejero, and he has something to say in this report. Let's listen.
Because even in the Power Sector Reform Act, even their trade agreements which they signed, that after 5 years, it is contained there must be a review for Nigerians, NBET, NEC, and stakeholders and Nigerians to come together to know how they have fared after 5 years. So why are they running away from it? It's part of the condition of the place they bought that there should be a review. And I have continued to call their attention to that very section that said there should be a review. So you and I should know whether what they promised 5 years ago is what we are getting today. When they were privatizing, we told them the danger of privatizing without metering. Every commodity has its own measure. Nobody goes to the market to buy garri without a cup that is used to measure it. Every commodity. And now you are having electricity without a measure. And we said then that, see, develop metering facilities in the country. Because in India, started it, you can walk into a shop and you get your own meter. We said develop this facility, metering facilities. Because if you leave these people to the vagaries of the market and the so-called investors, they will not install the meters because it pays them to operate on estimation. And that is what we have seen 5 years after down the line. People have not been metered. They promise that they are coming with their fund. They deceive Nigerians. And that's why we are calling for review. Some of us will ask them questions. 3 plans for the privatization to take place. Technical competence, managerial ability, FDI, foreign direct investment. Today, no $1 came into Nigerian economy after privatization. Rather, they are almost causing liquidity because all of them borrow from Nigerian banks to buy Nigerian electricity. So, and what they are doing now is that they are paying back what they borrow from the banks. If you borrowed at 25%, you shift the cost to the consumer. And that is what is happening on daily basis. And the little profit, they are taking it to the shareholders, the so-called shareholders, pseudo shareholders. Because nobody comes out to say I'm the owner of this place. Now when they take the little profit there, they are left with nothing to reinvest. No new transformer, no meter. If they generate 6,000 megawatts today, they can't wheel it out. You have to look at the transmission capacity. You have to look at the distribution capacity. If transmission wheels out 5,000 megawatts today, at distribution points where their transformers are not working, at times you'll be hearing po when NEPA brings light. Why are we still having Ministry of Power? Even the oversight function of the Ministry of Power, Fashola is not doing that very well. He's only holding meetings every month with a discourse. They will move to one state and hold meeting. Another month they go to another state. He has not added 1 watt. Since he came there, no new power station has been built. And if you don't build any new power station and you have 4,000 megawatts, you are revolving it every year and demand is increasing. You don't need to have a PhD in economics to know that if demand is increasing on a commodity that is constant, that you get to a time, if you are getting 6 hours, you'll be getting 2 hours and 1 hour. Because more people are demanding for that commodity, and the commodity is not improving. So I don't know where he's bringing that logic. What was the target they gave to them? If Ikeja Disco is not supposed to generate electricity. Now, and that was why we insisted that as a developing country, as a developing economy, you must, and I repeat, you must, generate electricity through the state's resources. And we looked at it, what is the return on investment if you build a new power plant? You can't recoup your investment within 15 years. And there is no Nigerian investor that will wait for 15 years to get his profits. So what is happening now is the same power plants we had before is what we have today, 5 years after. So how is electricity going to improve? So let him tell us what they have done new. and let him tell us why the federal government should continue to budget money to the Ministry of Power. What is it meant for? So there's a lot of confusion, you know, until they. I have never seen, and I repeat, there is no economy in this world that the power sector was developed through the private sector. None. It is through the state, because even if you are borrowing, the state can borrow cheaper. If Nigerian government is borrowing, they will borrow cheaper. And Nigerian government will even be involved in social service and not maximization of profit, which is what the private sector are doing. So let them continue to toy with our destiny.
Wow.
To let them continue to toy with our destiny. But how do you side when he said, well, there's no country in the world that has a privatized power sector?
Or that their economy was built on a
exactly that the states have to generate.
Right. No, I mean, look, in power, you know, 200 or 100 years ago, when United States, when Europe was getting powered, yes, the state was involved in subsidizing and all that, but it was still private companies that put it together. The way it actually started was, it was largely small-scale utilities, localized, like Nesco, that then, you know, grew up all over the country and then eventually were brought together to the central grid. And then in Nigeria, we copied that model from the beginning for the central grid and forgot about the distributed part. But those same countries are now going back to the distributed model. But again, it's guided by the government where it's needed. Sometimes there's subsidy if you're taking it to deeply rural areas, but it's always been private sector driven.
But at state level, we're still not doing enough. What do you expect we should be doing when we are talking about state level power generation, distribution and transmission and a whole lot more?
Right. Well, you know, power is one of the things that it's a federal, it's under federal law, right? So states can only work within the confines of what the federal laws allow. But what has now happened is that in 2017, there were two laws that were passed. One was the mini-grid regulation, and the other was the eligible customer regulation, which actually will completely disrupt the power sector as we have known it, because it basically opens the door for small-scale local generation, transmission, and distribution. Initially for areas that are
so it tells the excess that they have, isn't it?
Well, what it is you generate just where you are, and then you basically power that community where you are. So localized integrated utilities.
So that's like what Nesco is still doing in Jos, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. But we're talking of smaller scale, so maybe like 100 kilowatts, and then you're powering a village. But there are villages around Nigeria, Bamu in Ogun State, Bisanti in Niger State, Eche in Rivers State, where they now have these mini-grids in place, and these were communities that were in complete darkness, were not on the grid, and over the time since they had the mini-grid put in, you know, solar powered, they now have 24/7 reliable electricity. They have better electricity than the cities nearby who are on the grid, and these little communities are actually transforming and booming, and people are paying quite a lot of money for their power, but it's pay as you go, smart meters, everything is in place. And so you now have villages in Nigeria that actually have better power than...
So why can't that be translated to the States? Because I know in my village, there is more light, and it's just close to the metropolis to Calabar. That's Atimbo, Akpabuyo. They have better light supply than the cities. So why is it so easy for these communities to do that, and it's difficult for the urban areas?
The numbers are high.
I think the cities consume a larger
amount of
power, far more than 100 kilowatts or maybe 1 megawatt. So it would take a lot more to generate power for those kinds of areas, and that is where the old regulation is still holding on. You can't generate, I think you can't generate past 20 megawatts without connecting to the transmission grid, which is where the hiccup is in power. So we need more laws that would change that will say, okay, in this state you can generate so much electricity, say 100 megawatts or so, and sell it to who you want to sell it to. I think that liberalization is what will help us.
And we've already journeyed, it's over 5 years since we've had the privatization of the power sector in Nigeria, and if you listen to Joe Ajaero, he's calling for a review, and as part of the act, in the assessment, there's supposed to be a review. But government seems to be pulling out or not so optimistic or enthusiastic when it comes to reviewing the process so far.
Well, like I said, most of the lack of progress...
Is it because there is an understanding that there are failures that have not been addressed?
Most of the failures have come from government. The control which it still wants to wield in the power sector and the failure of the transmission is what is holding back the power sector. holding down the price, trying to control the price, and also failures of the transmission is what. So if they are calling for a review, government would not want to do a review, because when you review, you find out that they will still point back to them that it is you who has caused this problem.
But recently, the Honourable Minister for Power, Works and Housing, Raji Fashola, had said in a statement that government is not the problem, that they shouldn't be the ones that the fingers are being pointed to. So obviously it has to be the Gencos and Discos. Although I know that you would disagree with that, you would disagree with that. But I want to hear your thoughts, because he did say, like, if you don't have power, if you don't have light, that's not our problem. That's to paraphrase what he said.
How much power is the government transmitting to Nigerians, to 200 million Nigerians? How much power are they transmitting? And why do they still? You see, Nigeria, power is still a demand and supply commodity. I would generate, if I had the money, I would love to generate power to a place because we are starved of power. You have a country that needs 200,000 megawatts generating 4,500. A lot of power companies would love to come in. But then the government is restricting them from coming in by fixing the prices. So government is the main problem here. In the power sector, government is the main problem. There's no other explanation.
Let's talk about, I'm sorry, David, let's talk about the business angle to this. I was reading a report that said, it was more like a survey that was talking about achieving world standard power market and sustainable development. They kept saying that if the power sector, it shows that the power sector in Nigeria is underperforming, and there is an urgent need for proper policy towards achieving a quality, continuous and well-performing electricity in the country. And they're also saying that if this is not done anytime soon, we'll see businesses packing up again and leaving the shores of the country. What do we do about that?
Right.
And the average Nigerian wouldn't have any power at all.
Exactly.
No, look, I mean, part of the reason why Nigeria is not competitive when it comes to manufacturing and so on is because of the lack of reliable power. So everyone has to have some kind of backup, which is always going to be more expensive than a grid power. And because of that, the typical Nigerian company is spending 30 to 40% on power, when elsewhere in the world it's less than 10%. So right there you have a competitiveness gap because just of that cost. What's happening in Lagos is a lot of factories, a lot of large-scale companies are basically now using gas-powered turbines on site. They're using embedded power. They're cutting off the connection to the disco, and they're running it themselves, but at least it's gas-powered, which is now cleaner than diesel and petrol generators. Also more reliable, they last longer, it's cheaper. So that's happening in the industrial side in Lagos, which is taking a lot of sort of juicy customers off the grid completely. Then there's other industrials that are themselves becoming power companies, and they say, okay, look, if I'm now running a 4 megawatt power plant for my factory, why don't I manage the power system for my neighbors and the others and others? And some of these companies are now themselves aggregating that and becoming power companies themselves. That's on the industrial side. The same thing can happen in estates, right? All embedded power. And what will happen is, and then in rural areas it's mini grids, and then in low income areas it's also solar home systems, which is sort of house by house or SME by SME. And what is happening is one by one, customers will just cut off from the disco more and more until the discos are basically left hanging with almost nothing. And so if the reforms don't happen where the discos are allowed to charge, and if the discos also don't come up to date with technology, because this whole thing of metering is, there's no reason for it. You have smart meters that are $30. All of these mini grid companies, smart meter houses, people pay as you go, they're paying multiples of what the grid power is, but they're paying reliably and they're receiving the power and enjoying it.
Do they not? I mean, because we know this might sound new to some people who are not aware, but I'm sure that these government officials, especially those who are in the Ministry of Power, have traveled to other countries. They know about smart meters. They go for these energy summits. How come we're not incorporating that? If it's cheaper, if it's less expensive.
Right, they don't have to go outside Nigeria. Go to Sabongari Market in Kano. It's now being powered under a distributed solar approach, and each stall has smart meters. So any government official
is supposed to be free in the first place.
I think that giving of meters for free is part of the problem. Let people buy their meters. Like you said, it's $30. Go and buy your meter.
If you want to buy meters, I had a whole lot of discussion with some individuals prior to this session here, and people have paid as much as 200,000 naira for a meter.
Because they're trying to buy from the power companies. Let people
Well, because
go
they want to
and
make sure
buy,
that they're not buying the wrong things.
because they don't want to sell meters at all. Let people go and buy from the market, buy from shops.
Which markets? Which shops? Who is?
That's what we are saying.
How can you tell you're buying the right thing in the first
The
place?
markets will not sell meters because they don't have the right to. All meters right now all the meters from this disco come from the discos themselves. And sometime around that 2013-14, they were told to give it out for free. I never supported that because when you are, how much would it cost them to give this thing out for free?
But
and are they
even
even
now
willing?
that there's some sort of money is being pegged to having it, we have a whole lot of bottlenecks, and it's just, Abraham said, well, they've been chasing this whole meter issue back up to 1997, 1998 to 2003, and the last payment they made was close to 50,000 naira just for a meter. And why aren't we having metering companies producing all of these, or having some sort of synergy where we could have these accessible in Nigeria? He mentioned you could go to a shop in India and buy a meter instead of having to deal with estimated bills which run into thousands and thousands of naira.
So I think we're coming back to regulation, and it's the regulation around meters for the on-grid, because off-grid in Nigeria, they are using smart meters. People know exactly what they're consuming, and they're paying for what they're consuming. So it's on one side, the government has actually opened up the off-grid and has actually made it a very attractive market. Nigeria actually has the best off-grid energy policy in Africa. And there's $500 million waiting to invest in that space. There's no money that anyone wants to invest in on-grid, but off-grid, there's $500 million of grants, debt, equity waiting to be invested. There's amazing government programs. Tomorrow they're actually commissioning the Aria IPP, which is basically a 7-megawatt gas-powered plant to power the Aria market, which is one of Nigeria's most
biggest,
amazing markets. 50,000 stalls that the disco never supplied power to. So all of these people have been running on generators, spread all through the market. Obviously, very dangerous, and all of that is being taken away. Is now being run as a proper integrated utility with the generation, transmission. Each stall has its own meter, and again, they're paying for the power that they use.
Pay as you go.
Yeah.
Najib, this question's for you. We've had notable people hold these offices. I mean, from the likes of Leoli Moke and now Fash. I mean, a lot of people actually were excited at first when this office was given to the former Lagos State governor, because they thought that, because somewhat if he did a good job with Lagos, he'd probably do a good job with that power ministry.
He said 6 months and then he's going to fix the power problem.
And here we are in 2019.
It's because we politicize these things. We want people to have cheap power. When Fashola was in Lagos, he built the embedded power. He built some embedded power plants, and they were supplying, I think, the Secretariat and some other places. This is the off-grid power we are talking about. So although he has made there are some changes in the law, but like I said, the future of power in Nigeria has to be off-grid. We cannot rely on transmission. We cannot rely, and I think they are gradually beginning to see that they can't control that space so much.
We would also like to have your last thoughts now. When we're looking at the GenCodes and all of those, if we still have to work within this structure, one of the issues they've raised is the fact that we have insufficient gas supply as well, and then we're also looking at thermal GenCodes and hydroelectric power. What should the Nigerian vision be when we're talking about power generation in Nigeria?
Right. Well, I think first of all, we need to actually utilize the capacity we already have. So, I mean, there's roughly 10,000 megawatts of installed capacity, 6,000 that can actually be operated, and, we're only generating 4,000 of that to begin with. So even that additional 2,000 would be helpful if the transmission and discos could actually take it.
Annually, what's feasible? Because we've seen the manifestos of the Atiku plan, and then the next level as well. They've said, well, we would generate 3,000 and X, Y, Z. But as an energy expert, what is really feasible that we can achieve annually, adding to this current 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000?
Since privatization 5 years ago, only one new large-scale generation plant has come on board. That's Azura in Edo State, 500 megawatts. That scale of project takes roughly 7 years from inception to raise the money, to get the licensing, to get all the guarantees, to put it, to build it, construct, operate it. So those things take really, really long. So if we say in 5 years we got 500 megawatts additional power generated, and we have a 195,000 megawatt gap, that means we are going to be here for 1,000 years before we fix the problem.
And that's why it says then why do we have a budget from
exactly,
Najib?
Now,
I think let him finish.
So from that approach, we are at this pace and all that, we are never going to get there. However, if we now start taking the off-grid solutions, I was talking about factories and estates and all that going off the grid, households, communities, and this has sort of been unlocked now. And so it's hard to put a number on it, but there's a target to do 10,000 mini grids in the next 10 years. 10,000 mini grids, these small communities, which will now be powered up across Nigeria. So you may not get that we may not be getting close to that 200,000 megawatts we need, but we're at least going to be getting power to households, and at least people will have reliable power, even if it's only a small amount of power. We can actually get that to them. And then with some of these regulations, the eligible customer regulation also means a GenCo can now sell directly to a customer.
Exactly.
They can basically rent the TCN line, almost just you're like renting a pipeline.
So the discos are going to be displaced?
They could be. If they don't catch up, they'll be displaced because the GenCos can become discos and the discos...
But then the cost of tariff also comes into play here. At the end of the day, how do we now then...
Right. But see, in all of these other models, the tariff is not regulated the same way. And so a mini-grid operator can charge what is commercially viable for them to operate. So instead of charging the whatever, let's say 10 cents a kilowatt hour, they can charge 30, 40, 50.
Isn't that a space for exploitation then?
Well, if people are willing to buy, if VGC or another estate is willing to buy power at that cost, I don't see the exploitation there. So like we've said, the future is in these mini grids. Within 2 years, if you have small power plants generating maybe 10 megawatts, if you have 1,000 of them, that is 10,000 megawatts in about 2 years. But if we want to continue with this whole build one mega power plant that will generate, it will take so many years, and government regulation.
Pockets and then be able to pull a larger
10,000, 20,000 megawatts in the next 2 years if people are building small mini grid plants all over the country.
Yeah, and then let tariffs be based on willing seller.
Exactly.
And that's how it's working in the off-grid space.
Well, we're not done with this conversation on power, because all of this, the whole show this evening, we're going to be looking at different issues. Of course, when we come back, we're going to be looking at the issue of metering and the challenges.
Estimated
billing. I mean, I know. And there's also the issue of bypassing, you know. So we will talk. The people have a stake in this also. So it's not just, the buck doesn't just stop at the government's table, but we also have a part to play. Well, we want to say thank you, Dr. Wiba Boa, CEO, All On, and he's also an energy expert, and Najib Bello, public affairs analyst, who's been here with us all evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We'll be right back after the break, but then, of course,
You have to remember all of these conversations are going on live on our social media platforms at Plus TV Africa, that's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And please do watch us live on YouTube. We'll be back in just a moment with other conversations that would interest you, most definitely.
Hey, Anu! Look, I got something for you!
A football chassis?
Hey, Adu, come watch a game with your uncle and I.
Please, come. I'm okay, thanks.
The kind of person that you asked me to be. My brother say you love me, I love him too. I tell him I will do anything for you. But it's strange.
Did you see how many goals I scored?
I look at you.
You scored 2.
I look up like this, say, who are you?
So, Daddy, you showed those blues Pepe yesterday, right?
You sure did.
Those 3 points are sure for us today.
Remind me how.
Game's about to start. Quick, please.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Trending.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
That's the Brazilian who, with the longer blades that Austria wasn't too impressed with. 200 metres, but we must stress, absolutely legal.
Sounds of the surf.
Yeah. Now that he's a hater, I don't want no bad energy. Man get used by radar, can't see my enemy.
And this time they are away, and Peacock goes away strongly.
She wants a man from London, she wants a fellow with felonies. That's from being my team. There's no I in it, I bring it on my team. Just when they saw my team, even the bouncers bounce when they saw my team. Who do you wanna never know? Don't be a sheep when you can be the gold. Break this a book time and you never know. Don't show up to my show,
This is
got no
absolutely marvellous.
energy.
Today's top stories are
And the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. I'm here at Eunice Bashorin Street where
the fire destroyed our transformer complete as
The lowest level you can.
I'm Lakme Banjo, this is Plus TV Africa. The big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Hey, what's up guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshuke.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. By no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are. We should be doing a lot in refineries.
And we we are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
You're watching Plus TV Africa, and this is Tea Time.
I loved the energy when I came in here. It was so positive. I was like, I can't live here.
My real names are Akbovio Obo, Akbolubo Mere.
I think my father is a comedian because most times when he calls me, he's like, yo, make sure you use condom, you know, them girls out there.
So are you telling me I should have shot my shots?
Ife, you are my younger brother.
Age is nothing but a number. What? I'm a vampire.
I believe in equal rights for women, and I also believe that a man is the head of the house, so we need to draw our limits somewhere.
It feels so good. Now can I do my jam now?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
No talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Well, we're back. It's still Nigeria Decides, and we're talking about power. And at this point, we're going to be looking at renewable and alternative sources of power supply. And of course, on this issue, we will be having Oluwaseun Fadiora. He's a renewable energy professional, and we still have Dr. Weber Boer, CEO Olon, and he is an energy expert. It's good to have you gentlemen in the studio.
Now, one of the issues we've seen the lapses within the power sector, and it's time to discuss the way forward, and that's looking at alternative sources of power. But at the end of the day, we are known to rely on hydroelectric power and gas supply, but we've had constraints in those areas. And other advanced countries are looking at solar and other renewable energy. Let's talk about solar first and foremost.
Well, what I'd like to say about solar systems is that, so if you check Nigeria, for instance, if you do just a normal Google search, you're going to find out that Nigeria has an average 6 hours of sunlight every single day. In terms of potential, you will find out, because I was watching in the backstage, you know, when they were talking about the fact that Nigeria needed to generate up to 200,000 megawatts. And it's interesting because when I saw that, I actually went online and I saw that we can actually generate more than 400,000 megawatts from solar. No, I'm talking about potential. Do you understand? So if we have the potential to generate 400,000 and we're having issues with 200,000, which should be our target, and we're generating 4,000, I think the government needs to do a whole lot more, because by the end of the day, the problem is still with the government. You have an unlimited source of power. Every single day, the sun comes out. depending on where you are. If you're in the north, it comes out as early as maybe 5:30, 6 a.m. In Lagos, maybe like 7, 8 a.m. And then, you know, in some cases, you have sunlight up to like, you know, I think in my own area, for instance, I still have I have a solar system at home. So I still have my solar panels generating power up to like 6:45 p.m. So if we have access to that, I don't know why we're talking so much about us not having electricity.
Well, if we look at countries like the UK, where they have the feed-in tariff, as well as USA, the social investment tax credit to promote the use of solar panels, why isn't Nigeria also thinking in that direction as well?
I think we need to ask Fashola. Because truth be told, I was just thinking about the fact that if you look at the tax relief you're getting up to about 30%, I think, in the US if you're doing solar. And here in Nigeria, last year, February, the federal government actually changed the HS code for solar panels to something that's from 0 tariff to 10%. So if we're saying they should give us tax breaks and tax cuts, and they're still increasing the tariff for you to bring in the solar panels, that I don't think government is serious about doing anything with solar.
10% on having to bring in solar panels and a whole lot more to maintain an extra. What's your stance on that? If we're looking at energy that is supposed to be sustainable, and all we just need is little maintenance here and there.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, at a federal level, it's sort of at the administration level, there is actually, you know, like I've been talking about, there is actually quite a lot of support for off-grid and renewables and solar and so on. So this particular one, it was actually an example of one side of the government not collaborating with the other side. So, you know, it was all the way up to the office of the vice president. There had been this push to make sure that solar panels at least were imported tax-free. Then customs went in, sort of changed the classification, and now it suddenly became 10%. And they basically said that, oh, because a solar panel can generate power, if it has anything on it that allows it to generate power, it should be taxed like a generator. And so basically what the result was that if a solar panel is brought in and you're using it to make furniture, let's say, then there'll be no tariff. But if you're using it to generate electricity, we're going to put tax on it. How does that make sense?
It doesn't make common sense.
So, and the excuse at the time was, okay, we're trying to push towards, you know, manufacturing or assembly of solar panels in Nigeria, which is fine, but you do that gradually, right? And there is actually a company called Oxano that does assembly here in Nigeria of solar panels in Lagos. Blue Camel does it in Kaduna, so there is some of it, but obviously not nearly enough for what the market needs. And when you have, you know, like you said, an unlimited supply of energy from the sun.
But how feasible is the investment this time around coming from government stance and supporting this sector?
Sorry?
How feasible is it when we're looking at investments from the government stance and then saying, well, we'll create some ease of doing business within this area? How feasible is it that we'll be able to actualize this dream of having these solar panels being manufactured in Nigeria, and then the everyday Nigerian can also have it, not pegging that expense to it?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be quite a while until we can actually produce all the solar panels we need in Nigeria. Again, because we don't have power, we can't do it competitively. So it's kind of ironic that to generate, to manufacture the panels that you need to generate power, you can't do it competitively.
It's almost the chicken and the egg situation. Which one comes first? You know, because if you have to generate electricity, so take for instance, if you look at a company like Tesla. Tesla has what is called the Gigafactory, and the Gigafactory itself is being powered by solar panels, and they're using it to generate, to manufacture lithium-ion batteries and all that. Now, if you look at that, even though in the US they have quite a huge amount of power being generated, they're still relying on solar because they're trying to go clean, they're trying to go renewable. And then you look at a country like Nigeria, I don't understand the tariff. Because if you look at, in terms of investment, there are some companies in Nigeria, for instance, there's the Lumos Box. If you look at the Lumos Box, they've already done their business model, they've done their business plan, and when they were doing all those plans, tariff was 0. All of a sudden, now they need to bring in solar panels, and they have to pay 10% import tariff from them. And when they do that, what do you think that does to the customer?
The price goes high.
Okay, let's take some steps back. I was talking to a geologist who's been at this for years, and he was talking about the fact that we have not necessarily explored all the forms of renewable energy that we have in Nigeria. In fact, he made mention of certain states where there's gas just lying there untapped, and the government has failed to try to drive people or investors into those areas. So I'm wondering, we're struggling with something, and the answer is just lying around there,
right,
but we're not necessarily paying attention.
Yeah, so I think on any energy source you look at for Nigeria, whether it's gas, whether it's solar, whether it's hydro, whether it's wind, whether it's biomass, we actually have the energy source. We just don't have the business models, the regulation, the businesses to actually exploit it and get power to the people.
So why don't we open our doors and say, hey, we have what you need, come do it here. We need it. We need the, the final product of what you can give to us. So why is it such a I don't know, why is it such a big deal for us to open our doors to these people to invest and do the business easily? Because it's not, they're coming, but the problem is they're not necessarily able to do this business and give it back to us at a reduced rate.
So what I would say about that is that for every investor that comes into Nigeria, they're not philanthropists.
Of course, we know that.
They're here to make profits. And by the end of the day, I was listening, of course, like I said, in the backstage, and I could hear things like, you've already set your business model, and then after you've generated, and then government comes and pegs your price. There is no way I would look at my cost, and then the only way I can actually be profitable is to either reduce costs or to increase my price. Now, I can't increase my price, I can't reduce my cost. I'm kind of in a limbo, and if I'm an investor, if I look at it, I'm just going to decide and say, look, I'm out. And that's what you find happening, not just in the renewable energy sector. Again, when you look at the ease of doing business, now for people like us, one of the things that would have helped us, for example, is if we had access to funding. And when I'm talking about funding, for example, what we realized is that a lot of consumers don't even, so we have a partnership with the bank, and then what we do is we give you our invoice, we do the site inspection, give you the invoice, and then we tell you to go meet the bank for funding, and then you're able to pay over a 12-month period. Now, what's shocking is that when you tell people to pay over a 12-month period, once you mention bank, everybody runs away.
Interest rates.
Interest rates, bank terms, again, indiscipline on the part of the consumers. Because by the end of the day, nobody wants to take a risk, and then the risk crystallizes on you, which is why you have the business model where all they do is they'll give you the equipment and then you pay for the power being generated. But what our model is for you to own the equipment yourself. So you have a lot of disconnect. Again, it's only government that can actually do stuff like you're asking. We can do that. He can't even do that. He's doing that, he said he's been here for like 2 years, and they're doing a lot. But the truth is that without government support, we're just wasting our time.
Right. So let me actually talk about something around this. So the government actually did a whole process to basically attract foreign investment to do solar at utility scale. So there were 14 solar IPPs that were licensed, and these were now, international investors and some domestic investors. Even in spite of the fact that the power sector was having its issues, even though transmission hadn't really been fixed, etc., 14 different consortia were ready to invest, millions and millions of dollars into this new solar generation. It would have added about another 1,000 megawatts to the generation. As they were going through the process, then suddenly the government said, okay, the tariff that we're gonna pay you is, this much less than what we had actually agreed. And so they all just walked away, or they're all basically just waiting. And so by now we could have actually had, those projects would have all been halfway done. Even with, yes, it would have been difficult for the transmission to absorb it. But at this point, if they were at least in the process of being built, we could have found other ways to use that power. We could have said, okay, the one in Katsina, just let it distribute power to Katsina. Forget about the grid. But now there's not even any soil has been turned, nothing. But all these international investors were ready to put money.
I have a concern. Now, this might just be hearsay. This might not hold any water. But there have been critics of the government, basically, who have said the reason why we still are not is not necessarily because we're not able to figure this out if we want to. It's because we have people who are importing generators, people who are bringing all kinds of sizes of generators. It's the business, it's the market on its own. And some people feel that these people are lobbying and not letting, you know, the things that are supposed to be done, yes, to be had. So they're saying it's a deliberate act to forestall, you know, us getting proper electricity up and running 24 hours around the clock, because our neighbors like Ghana, I mean, they've figured it out. Why can't we figure it out?
Especially going beyond solar panel, street lights, and all of those.
Exactly.
We need more visible elements here.
So another thing I'd like to put into the mix would be the issue of quality, would be the issue of regulation. Now, if you look into the Nigerian market space, because we deal on the retail side, and because we deal on the retail side, when you go into the Nigerian market and you look at the different brands of inverters and batteries that exist in the market, I can almost tell you that I don't know everything offhand. And it's mind-boggling. And here's the challenge we have. Most batteries, most inverters that we have do not last more than a year.
But how affordable are these batteries? What's the average cost?
They are not affordable. So you have prices. So let me just give you some numbers. So if you want to get the 200 amps 12-volt batteries today, if you go to the popular Alaba market, you can get batteries for as low as 75,000 naira.
That's not low.
Oh,
and then you need how many batteries would you then need if you're having a 4-bedroom house? So
now you have that at like I said, 75,000, and in Lagos you can get batteries as high as 250,000 naira for one. Now here's the problem: the one you would buy from Alaba, I beseech you, brethren, do not go there because by the end of the day, not to badmouth anybody, you know, there are no checks in place. There was a time we had an issue with a popular brand in the market. We actually went to Consumer Protection Council, and I don't want to say this on air, you won't believe their responses. I was frustrated. The only reason why we were able to get any redress was because that particular brand, a lot of us installers and retailers, we boycotted them, and when they were not having sales, they had no choice but to come back to say, okay, what's the issue? And then they now started trying to address.
But did you at any point try to reach the CPC and then say, hey, these are some of the issues and what?
Oh, yes, I did.
Did they come in?
Want me to say that on there?
Well, it's the duty to protect your rights.
Let me tell you what CPC said to me. OHA, first time I went to CPC, they told me they did not have electricity to print a letter to send to them.
Quite an
Months later, they said they did not have paper to use to print, to send to them. Eventually, when they got them on ground, we had a meeting. At the meeting, the company sent the CSO and the head of the service center. So by the end of the day, we were frustrated. Do you understand? I couldn't get any redress. CPC still hasn't gotten back to us on the outcome of that meeting we had. So
we are running out of time. But Weaver, I just want to last thought. Really, if we are going to look at an energy mix in Nigeria now, biofuel, solar panel, renewable energy, hydroelectric power, wind energy across Nigeria, how would you say we should pitch our different tents and areas of strength?
Look, in 60 seconds.
Okay, with a 200,000 megawatt gap, I don't think we need to plan that hard. That you should do tens of thousands of megawatts of everything. And again, we have endless sun, we have endless water, we have endless trash, we have endless gas, we have large gas supply. Everything is there. It's just we need the policy in place, and then we need the investors, and then we need the right. Just the right ecosystem to just bring it out and generate the power and get it to Nigerians. It's all there.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Dr. Weaver Boa, CEO All On, he's an energy expert, and of course Oluwaseun Fadera, renewable energy professional. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Nice. Well, we have to take a break and bring you the news update. Nigeria Decides continues right after that. Stay with us.
feel it. We feel it. Can you feel it? The Niger spirit. Do you feel it? Cause I feel it. We all feel it. The Niger spirit. We don't just feel it, we live it. And if you get it, you got the Niger spirit. This Niger spirit, we breathe it. Best believe it, real as my heartbeat is. The Niger spirit, you can't beat it. So even when I lose, I am not defeated. We all breathe it, we all bleed it, we all live it. The Niger spirit, the Niger spirit. We love it, we live it. Niger all the way.
Niger all the way.
Don't sell your birthright.
We cannot fold our hands and look Nigeria dying.
The Godfather will give you the terms. And if you don't meet up, of course you know you're going to be chopped aside.
People's power is the essence of democracy.
Power is not served a la carte.
The presidency is coming out and saying it's the fact that they are related through marriage. At the end of the day, that is conflict of interest.
He was expected to change the tone of his speech to appeasing to these troublemakers.
When an elderly man in society talks, he needed to be taken seriously.
When you want to fight corruption, you reform the system and institutions.
Development of a nation is inextricably linked to the education of its people.
Nigerian youths are not lazy. Nigerian youths don't have leaders to guide them properly.
When you don't plant a good nation, you can't reap a good nation.
That money will shoot every person that we know can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed me for a long period of time.
At that time why I carry gonorrhea. I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I come down, mama.
He just pulled it, he pointed and shot.
What is the soul of a man?
They suffer too much. They suffer too much.
Issues around the Nigerian police, we have to tackle it holistically.
Hey, what's up guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Osuke. Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Event is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. No question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
No talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are.
We should be doing a lot in refineries.
And we are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Watching Plus TV Africa, and this is Tea Time.
I loved the energy when I came in here. It was so positive. I was like, I can live here.
My real names are Akbofio Fobo, Akbolubo Mere.
I think my father is a comedian because most times when he calls me, he's like, yo, make sure you use condom, you know, them girls out there.
So are you telling me I should have shot my shots?
Ife, you are my younger brother.
Age is nothing but a number. What? I'm a vampire.
I believe in equal rights for women, and I also believe that a man is the head of the house, so we need to draw our limits somewhere.
It feels so good. Now can I do my jam now?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Trending.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
That is how we get looped into a cycle of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That cycle of failure is unsustainable and it has to end now.
Perfection train is back.
They take us to the bush and start asking us to call our people to send money.
What can be done as an intervention for them right now to stop abuse of all children?
Hello there and many thanks for joining us on the news on the hour on Plus TV Africa. Here are the stories making headlines. I am Mary Ann Okon. The Senate has cancelled its scheduled plenary bill to hold on Tuesday. The clerk of the Senate, Mr. Nelson Ayewo, stated this in a statement signed by him on Monday evening. Ayewo did not give reasons for the action but explained that the federal lawmakers would now resume on February 19, earlier adjourned to last week. Investigation by our correspondent revealed that, however, the last-minute cancellation followed the decision of the Red Chamber to approach the Supreme Court for the interpretation of the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. The Senate has approached the Supreme Court for an interpretation of the powers of the President in the appointment of the removal of the Chief Justice of Nigeria with respect to the roles of the upper chamber of the National Assembly and the National Judicial Council in the entire process, following President Muhammadu Buhari's suspension of Chief Justice Walter Onnoghen over false declaration of assets and subsequent appointment of Tanko Muhammad in acting capacity. The Senate, which held the view that if it had been undermined in the entire process by criminally usurping its powers, therefore approached the Supreme Court for a timely interpretation. In addition, the Senate, which is scheduled to consider a special session on the matter tomorrow, envisages a rancorous sitting, especially from supporters of the government and the ruling party, the APC, noting that the only way out of the current constitutional quagmire is by approaching the Supreme Court. The Code of Conduct Tribunal on Monday adjourned indefinitely the trial of Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, who was suspended on Friday by President Muhammadu Buhari. Onnoghen was charged before the Tribunal of the Code of Conduct Bureau over non-declaration of assets allegations. Buhari also swore in an acting CJN on Friday, Mr. Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad.
Before the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal granted an order staying proceedings before this tribunal until the motion before the Court of Appeal is determined. So in obedience to that order from the Court of Appeal, this tribunal has today adjourned all further proceedings in this matter pending the determination of the appeal, and that's why the matter here has been adjourned sine die, that is until further notice, until we have the Court of Appeal determine the matter before it. Unfortunately, to going by the order made by this tribunal today, proceedings are stayed until the appeal is determined.
News just reaching us say that members of the Nigerian Bar Association and the National Interest Defenders and Lawyers in Defense of Democracy are protesting the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onnoghen, at the NBA Secretariat in Abuja. President Muhammadu Buhari suspended Onnoghen and swore in Justice Tanko Muhammad as replacement on Friday. The protesters carried placards of various inscriptions, including "Tanko Muhammad, stop parading yourself as CJN. NBA must act now by ordering lawyers to down tools. Amechi El-Rufai Akpabio Malami, APC, brains behind Onnoghen's trial. NJC must reconvene now and expel Justice Tanko Muhammad, amongst others."
Never at a time like this have we experienced, this kind of assault on the fundamental law of this country. And the custodians of law, and I refer to lawyers in this case, must be the ones to meet and then determine the way forward. And in this particular case, To the best of my knowledge, the NBA is requesting that there be outright reversal of the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria because it violates the fundamental law of the land. It destroys the very foundation upon which Nigeria is built, and it is worrisome and troublesome for us at this moment.
Even if the CJN has committed a serious offense, you need to go through the normal procedure to bring him to book. You do not just wake up arbitrarily and then tell us that the tribunal gave you an order and then acting on that order you remove a CJN. It's not heard of anywhere in this world, and we are saying no to that kind of behavior.
Let it be known that we reject in its entirety the purported and unconstitutional suspension of the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we demand that all legal processes must be followed to ensure that this constitutional breach is reversed.
In advanced countries, people, even if it is an allegation, they will resign honorably. But in this case, he doesn't want to resign. Why? Why will one man hold us to ransom? Why? For what reason? A country of 180 million, one man will just be a problem for us? No, we reject that. We want him to resign or sack. He should be sacked.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, reacting to the suspension of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, has said that Nigeria is passing through difficult times in the recent developments in the country. Speaking during a media conference at Abuja, he warned the All Progressive Congress and the Muhammadu Buhari government to stop acts that could truncate Nigeria's democracy. He warned that the CJN suspension was an attack on the judiciary and could precipitate a constitutional crisis that would derail Nigeria's democracy. The Chancellor of the International Society for Justice and Human Rights, Dr. Onem Nazu Jackson, has called for diligent prosecution and not prosecution of the suspended Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. He stated this on Monday in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, while addressing a news conference. Jackson pleaded with members of the political class whom he accused of aiming to truncate Nigeria's democratic process through unwarranted and unguarded attacks on institutions of government to be patriotic in their undertakings. The Chancellor of ISSJHR also called for urgent convocation of a sovereign national conference, having seen the lacunas contained in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, which he said had given rise to the current constitutional crisis rocking the Nigerian state. Following allegations that the case against the CJN was much more than a misconduct, the federal government has yet again defended the action of President Buhari for suspending the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onnoghen. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, at a press briefing in Abuja on Monday, said that there were suspicious transactions running into millions of dollars, which it said was traced to the suspended CJN's personal account. It said these were all undeclared or improperly declared as required by the law. The Ekiti State Governorship Election Tribunal sitting in Abuja has upheld the victory of the All Progressive Congress APC and its candidate in the last governorship election in the state, Kayode Fayemi. The Justice Suleiman Belgore-led tribunal, in a judgment that lasted for about 5 hours on Monday, dismissed the petition by the PDP and its candidate Kolakbo Olushola on the grounds that they failed to prove the case. Justice Belgore, who read the judgment, found that the evidence led by the petitioners was insufficient to prove their claim that the election was held in substantial non-compliance with the Electoral Act.
Minutes, almost 5 hours, and the conclusion, the summary that the take home from the judgment is that these are claims that they say they are phantom claims, phantom reliefs, phantom presentation. So what else do you want me to say?
Delivered their judgment, and we have conversations with our client to know the next line of action. It was a judgment that they put a lot of industry in. That is the beauty of democracy. That is the beauty of our court system.
Meanwhile, the immediate former governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, has condemned the judgment of the Ekiti State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, which sat in Abuja on Monday. The tribunal had upheld the election of Kayode Fayemi as governor of Ekiti State. Fayose said he would have been surprised if the tribunal had ruled otherwise because, according to him, the judiciary was already corrected by the APC-led federal government. He alleged that the judgment had already been in the public domain and celebrated by APC since the last few days. The three-man panel of the Ekiti State Governorship Tribunal, in a unanimous judgment, dismissed the suit filed by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, Professor Olushola Kolakbo Olubumi. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has sent names of new Deputy Inspector Generals of Police to the Police Service Commission for consideration and approval. It was gathered that the nominees include the Force Secretary Taiwo Lakanu, former Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Chairman Ibrahim Lamod, and 4 others. The Police Service Commission, which is still holding its plenary meeting, is expected to announce the names of the DIGs later today. And in Africa, Egypt President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that human rights should be taken in the context of regional turbulence and the fight against terrorism. During a joint press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday, the French president had told his Egyptian counterpart that stability and security could not be separated from human rights. Sisi responded by saying that Egypt is not like Europe nor the United States, and not that the North African country had its own way of doing things. Sisi ousted former President Mohamed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood in 2013 and was elected as president a year later, presiding over a crackdown on the opposition that was extended from Islamist to liberalist activists. Sisi and his supporters say the measures are needed to stabilize Egypt after the turmoil that followed the country's 2011 uprising. In an interview this month, Sisi denied Egypt was holding political prisoners, though one right group estimates that number to about 60,000. On the foreign scene, Human Rights Watch Executive Director Kenneth Roth said on Monday he hopes Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro's government would not resort to a violent bloodshed to maintain power. On January 23, Parliament President and opposition leader Juan Guaido had declared himself interim president, calling Maduro's May 2018 election a fraud. Guaido's move was swiftly recognized by the United States, Canada, and many Latin American countries, while Russia and China publicly supported Maduro, throwing the country into a deeper crisis. Britain, Germany, and France had said they would recognize Guaido if Maduro failed to call fresh elections within 8 days, a proposition he so far has rejected.
And our major concern right now is that the government not resort to the violent bloodshed to maintain its power that it has in the past. And it is, there's a long history now of using lethal force as well as, severe mistreatment of protesters to shut down the protests. And so our primary concern right now is that that not be replicated as these two competing parties negotiate the future of Venezuela.
And in entertainment, Davido has hit another pivotal point in his career as he sold out London's 20,000 capacity venue, the O2 Arena. The event was iconic and kicked off by the likes of DJ Echo and UK's finest Team Westwood. Among the performing acts were Mayokun, Peruzzi, Dremo, Yonda and Zlatan, who are Davido's protege. Jamaican dancehall artist Pop Khan also graced the stage. Davido was announced on stage by popular British actor Idris Elba. Davido made an epic entrance on a suspended platform, causing deafening cheers from the waiting crowd. Davido has also made history as the youngest African artist to sell out the iconic London O2 Arena, although he has yet again marked his dominance on the global scene. Wizkid cannot be left out as he was the first Nigerian artist to sell out the iconic O2 Arena via his Afro Republic concert in 2018. And that's all we have for you on the news roundup this hour on Plus TV Africa. For more news updates, please follow us on Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube page at Plus TV Africa. We'll be back later with more stories making headlines. Do join us. I am Mary Anacone. To have a great day.
I am gap-toothed black girl, back corner of class, scribbling left-handed poetry on blank paper. Save the school's curriculum for later. I am overflowing tales by moonlight, that informal education. Trickling off the tip of my grandmother's tongue, you will find my mother's tongue here. A fast and fluent Yoruba, crisscrossing English, hidden messages in prose and proverbs call it Yorubanglish. And I am the miracle of melody, nestled deep in the groove of a rich high life rhythm, a child of the marriage of hip hop and Afro beats, and you can hear our voices pulsing beneath the skin of a talking drum, commanding hips to move without caution. And I am sky high, gele, bold and beautiful. We redefine fashion, wear our stories around our necks and from our ears so we never forget the voices of our ancestors. This heritage, this heartbeat, this is who I am. Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner.
That is how we get looped into a cycle of insanity, repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. That cycle of failure is unsustainable and it has to end now.
Perfection train is back.
They take us to the bush and start asking us to call our people to send money.
What can be done as an intervention for them right now to stop abuse of all children?
You're watching Plus TV Africa, and this is Tea Time. I loved the energy when I came in here. It was so positive. I was like, I can live here.
My real names are Akbofio Fobo, Akborobo Mere.
I think my father is a comedian because most times when he calls me, he's like, yo, make sure you use condom, you know, them girls out there.
So are you telling me I should have shot my shots?
Ife, you have a younger brother.
Age is nothing but a number. Well, I'm a vampire.
I believe in equal rights for women, and I also believe that a man is the head of the house, so we need to draw our limits somewhere.
Feels so good. Now can I do my jam now?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
Don't sell your birthright.
We cannot fold our hands and look Nigeria dying.
The Godfather will give you the terms, and if you don't meet up, of course you know you're going to be chopped aside.
People's power is the essence of democracy.
Power is not served a la carte.
The presidency is coming out and saying it's the fact that they are related through marriage. At the end of the day, that is conflict of interest.
He was expected to change the tone of his speech to appeasing to these troublemakers.
When an elderly man in society talks, he needed to be taken seriously.
When you want to fight corruption, you reform the system and institutions.
Development of a nation is inextricably linked to the education of its people.
Nigerian youths are not lazy. Nigerian youths don't have leaders to guide them properly.
When you don't plant a good nation, you can't reap a good nation.
Brazilian who with the longer blades that Austria wasn't too impressed with. 200 metres, but we must stress, absolutely legal.
Sounds of the surf.
Yeah. Now that he's a hater, I don't want no bad energy. Man get used by radar, can't see my enemy.
And this time they are away, and Peacock goes away strongly.
She wants a man from London, she wants a fellow with felonies. That's not being my team. There's no I in it, I bring it on my team. Just this all my team. Even the bouncers bounce when it's all my team. Who do you wanna never know? Don't be a sheep when you can be a gold. Break this a book time and you never know. Don't show up to my show.
This is
Got no
absolutely marvelous.
energy.
Today's top stories are...
And the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. I'm here at Eunice Bashorin Street where the fire destroyed our transformer complete as
the lowest level you can.
I'm Blackberry Banjo. This is Plus TV Africa. The big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Hey, what's up guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Osuke.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Event is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, by no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild.
This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are.
We should be doing a lot in refineries. And we are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
Well, welcome back. It's still the Nigeria Decide studios, and we have been talking about the power sector.
Most
one of the
definitely.
most, the only sector that really powers everything, because in a country where there is no energy, everything else is dead. Give power to a country, a community, and you give power to the industries, to all of the businesses. It just keeps it running.
Well, that issue cannot be overflogged, and one of the issues that we've seen there is that we now have to look at alternative sources of power, especially off-grid, because at the end of the day, that's the future. And if we need our industries to thrive in Nigeria, power is really crucial. And apart from that, residential purposes, we all need power.
David, the world has gone 5 million years ahead of us. Now, countries are talking about, cars that are powered by electricity, and you know, they're talking about clean energy, and we're still talking about 7,000 megawatts. I mean,
4,000. We're still wavering around.
7,000 is supposed to be like but I mean, so we need to play catch up, and we need to start today. Renewable sources of energy is like, that's where the world is,
the
and
way
they're
to
using
go.
it. So
and I
Nigeria
think
needs to play.
the government of the day and any incoming government has to understand that power is crucial. Alternative sources of power, we have to take a keen look at that, and all of these tariffs and means of regulation, there's a real need to restructure the whole policies and all the bottlenecks that we have there.
I mean, I thought that with the unbundling of, you know, the PHCN at the time, it was going to be, all our problems were going to be solved, but we unbundled and bundled back again.
I expect that we'll just have some sort of review of that Power Sector Reform Act. But sadly, we tried reaching out to different DISCOs and GENCOs officials, but we didn't have any solid response from them.
Unfortunately, we were left hanging. But, well, we have people who have decided to join the conversation. We did put out our social media handles and said, be part of the conversation, because we know this is something that Nigerians are very passionate about. So we got some reactions, and we're going to try as much as possible to get those reactions and read them out on air, because we appreciate you. We love it when you send in your messages. So Sir Ike here on Twitter says, presently we are given light for 2 hours 30 minutes for a day, and have gotten our share today till tomorrow. Most times you won't even have any, yet you must pay bill, else you get disconnected. And he says, hashtag, I'm not happy at all.
That's pretty much what everybody says. But 2.5 hours of light, what can one barely do? And you know, the issue here is that some people would say you have light during the day, and then it's shifted to possibly maybe the next week or upper week you have light in the evening, and you just have 2.5 hours of light. What do you do with that?
How do you get your refrigerator to store the things that you're storing? Because you can't keep cooking fresh food every day, but then that's what people are subjected to, and it's a bit more costly to keep making fresh food every day. It's tough.
And then you have to spend so much money on buying fuel and having to have your generator running as well.
Cannot carry your deep freezer, or, you know, it depends on the capacity.
Even your iron, it puts a whole lot of pressure on that.
It's crazy.
But and how do businesses also thrive? Because we are saying small and medium enterprises. We have other responses.
This one says,
PHCN that feels providing power is a privilege. Definitely not satisfied, and that's coming from Peter O.
Yeah, well, we asked the question, by the way. Our handle was asking when was the last time you had power, and he's saying, look, he's not a satisfied customer, and PHCN feels too entitled, you know. And that's not how
I'm not even so satisfied when it comes to the whole process of acquiring a meter. That shouldn't be some huge task.
Some people say they're asked to pay a certain amount, and another person says they're asked. So there's a disparity. Talking about the metering, we're even going far. If a transformer goes bad in an area, the town crier comes and says, oh, they say we should bring money. But then the PH, I don't know what it's called here, the DISCOs would tell you, we didn't ask anybody to pay money. If you paid money, then you did the wrong thing. We would provide.
But these are the officials that come as disguised.
So they tell you, look out for those people, find their names, get their IDs. There's a number you can call to lodge this complaint. So it's a potpourri of issues, and sometimes we don't even know who to run to and who to complain to, because the information is just so much, and sometimes we really don't know. And the people are also under pressure because you need power. The businesses in those areas.
Do you know how much we've estimated? We just did a background check, and the creative guys, some say that they have to spend as much as 18,000 naira, 20,000 naira, 5,000 naira, and these are young individuals who, what do you have in your house beyond a fridge, a television, an iron, and other little appliances? What exactly
and your bill comes in and it's 5,000, 8,000, and you're wondering how many times in a day did we get light?
Some people have as much as 20, 30,000 naira.
For what? So the issue is it's just...
And there's another comment here coming from Odinaka, and it says, 1 month ago I was about to shout up NEPA, and as I said up, the light went.
And this one says the last time he had light was 4 months ago. What? 4 months? That means you're literally buying fuel or diesel, as the case may be, for As long as...
That's why we are deciding here, and if Nigeria is supposed to decide in just a few days' time, then we have to hold all of these state actors, government actors accountable. We can't have this type of situation continuing.
Well, we have one last tweet here from Benny Iheme, at Benny Iheme on Twitter. She's saying, this morning at 5 a.m. after four days of no light, so this is the first time in 4 days that she's seen light. So it begs the question, when are we going to grow out of this? The policies, and like I said, policies. We need those policies to be put in place. We need to press for those policies to be put in place, and we need to make sure that there's a follow-through.
And we need to understand that having light, having electricity is not a privilege at the end of the day.
It's a basic right.
Amenity. We should have that.
Because we're going to pay for it at the end of the day. So if you provide a good quality service, people will not murmur about paying for it.
We've also made mention of that. If we have that, and you're sure you're going to have 24 hours power supply, why not? You would be willing to pay for it, but not that I'm going to pay exorbitant fees and have no power, and I just have to go around the circle of having a stressful day and come back home and no power.
More stress. Unfortunately, that is our situation until we can get it right. But we want to thank you all for being part of Nigeria Decides today. I've had
we'll be back here again tomorrow. Similar faces, same faces. And we'll be discussing other pertinent issues. What I enjoy most about the conversation is that as we are counting down, we keep on hitting certain issues that every Nigerian is supposed to look out for. So definitely, on all our social media platforms, you're supposed to be looking out for conversations that would really drive discourse here and make meaning to you. So make it a date with us at 6 p.m. tomorrow. I'm David Alabi
and I am Mary Anna Kun. Enjoy the rest of our programs.
Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to One on One. In the studio with me today is Parminder Veer, OBE, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. As executive producer, non-executive director and CEO, she has a track record of creating opportunities and adding value through sound strategic planning. Parminder has devoted her working life to a passionate pursuit of untapped potential, both in terms of business development and as a teller of untold stories from those without the resources to reach their deserved audience. She was awarded Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II for her services to broadcasting in 2002. Currently as CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, she oversees the strategic development and implementation of its key programs and activities, which include the TEF Entrepreneurship Program, a 10-year, $100 million commitment to identify, train, mentor, and fund 10,000 entrepreneurs from across the continent. Welcome to the studio, Parminder.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Kindly tell us about the Tony Elumelu program.
It is literally the largest entrepreneurship program on the continent, but also I would say around the world. Every year since 2015, we select 1,000 entrepreneurs and we provide them with training, mentoring, seed capital to develop their business ideas, and then a membership to the largest entrepreneurship network across the continent. The program was launched really to, operationalize Mr. Elumulu's vision that Afrocapitalism, his economic philosophy of Afrocapitalism, that it is the private sector that's going to transform the African continent. The economic transformation that lies with the private sector, and startups and SMEs are very much a part of that private sector development and growth. I think the other two is that he always says that he was lucky, and he wants to institutionalize luck. And the foundation and the entrepreneurship program is a way of institutionalizing that luck, and also to democratize opportunity. He is born in Nigeria, made it in Nigeria, but he is really a Pan-Africanist. He sees the whole of all the 54 African countries and economies as fundamental to the business growth of the continent.
Yeah, I liked when you said he's trying to institutionalize LOC.
Yeah.
What are the criteria for getting involved in the program?
So the application portal opens once a year on the 1st of January and it closes on the 1st of March. So the 2019 application portal is open now. This is the 5th round of the program. So we've already trained and mentored and provided seed capital to 4,470 entrepreneurs over the last 4 years. And the criteria for applying is simple. You have to have a business idea. You've seen a gap in the market. You think you've seen a problem, and you think your business idea is the solution. And you know that there is a potential customer or a client who's going to be able to pay for your product or service, yeah? So it is with your business idea that you apply. And for those of you who are considering applying, the application form is not a walk in the park. It was designed to really differentiate those who think that this is, a grant aid program. It's not. It's an entrepreneurship development program. And fundamental to the program is the 12-week training and the mentoring that you will receive before you even get anywhere near to accessing the $5,000.
So is there an age group? Is there a timeline? Is it for everyone who wants to start a business, or you're already in the business? How does it work exactly?
So we wanted to play at the bottom of the pyramid, institutionalize luck, democratize opportunity. There isn't that opportunity at the bottom of the pyramid. So we said we would receive ideas from enterprises that are 0 to 3 year old. You can apply with an amazing idea, and many of our applicants have applied and have been accepted. Or you can apply with a business that you started but is under 3 years old. You have to be over 18 plus, so you have to be 18 years old to be able to apply.
And what's the maximum age?
You can be 100 plus, as long as you have an amazing business idea. So our applicants range from 18 to 70 plus, yeah? Wow. Remember, the entrepreneurs are now becoming an important part of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And then we are sector agnostic. A lot of programs out there are focused on particular sectors. Our program is sector agnostic, and we already have 30 plus sectors from where entrepreneurs apply. Yeah, we are also gender agnostic in the sense that our program isn't targeting men or women, but where what we want to see is men and women apply in equal numbers. In the first year, we had I think 24% of our applicants, and the ones we selected were women business owners. We recognized we had to, and then we used those women business owners who had applied and gone through the program as role models in our advertising campaign and marketing campaign. And to our amazement, in 2018, I think we had 41% were women business owners. So you can see that there was an organic growth of women business owners saying, hang on, this speaks to me, and I can apply and have a chance of my application being selected. So the first challenge is the application. Then the next challenge is getting selected.
Exactly, I was going to ask you, so what are the criteria for getting selected? I've applied. How do I know that I'm fit for this?
Sure. So if you're applying, my advice to you is to read the application form and the terms and conditions, because in the terms and conditions, you'll read the criteria for selection. And there are really 5 fundamental criteria. One is the feasibility of your business idea. So when Accenture Development Partners reviews the applications, these are the 5 criteria against which your application, your business idea is being reviewed. The feasibility of the idea. Is there a market opportunity for your business idea? Where is this market? Yeah. Your financial understanding. Financial literacy, as we've discovered over the last 4 years, is one of the weak links across the African continent. But I think that's the case with most entrepreneurs. We're much more interested in the idea than the financial management. But you have to have some financial understanding of your business. You know, are you doing this as a lifestyle, or is this something that you think, oh, I'll run this on the side while I still have my public sector job or a corporate job? So it's really your passion for your business idea, your entrepreneurial skills, yeah? And finally, it's really whether this idea has scalability. Can it go from your community, from your country? Can this product travel across borders? Are there customers and clients who will be able to pay for this, you know, product or service outside of your identifiable market?
All right, so in terms of finances, like you rightly said, that's one challenge I love entrepreneurs face. Is there a training that those selected go through in terms of helping them understand how financial management should be done? So certainly even at the application stage, we provide tools with which you can, you know, as you're filling out the application form, because it's important that you begin to understand at this stage, at the application stage, of why financial management and financial understanding is important. But yes, I mean, there is the 12-week training program. And I think it's week 5, which is the one that's the toughest, It's all about financing. We have Accenture development partners who've actually given us a lot of financial management tools, which we've incorporated into the 12-week training program. So there's a lot of hand-holding, and a lot of additional information is given to those who were selected and who are now embarking on that 12-week training program. Plus, of course, you have your mentor who will also guide you through the processes from the week 1 to week 12 when you assemble your business plan. All right, so talking from the perspective of anyone who's watching, right, is there an educational background requirement that is necessary before applying?
No, because I mean, I think the program is, we are a technology-driven program. So the 12-week training and the mentor learning program is online. The application form is submitted online. But it doesn't seem to be deterring people from across the African continent. I mean, in the first year we had 20,000, and last year we had 151,000 applications from 54 African countries in 3 languages, French, Portuguese, and English, So there's not an education background, but more, I think you need to be technology or tech savvy, at least. Technology savvy, because it is a technology-driven program. And it is your business idea and your ability to articulate that idea on paper. You're only a failure if you don't learn and apply the mistakes to either changing direction or improving whatever aspects of your business that's been suffering.
We'll take a quick break now. You're still watching One on One on Plus TV Africa. Do stay with us.
I have seen these young Africans prosper, from some who didn't even know what to do with their lives until they got the $5,000 seed capital from Tony Elumelu Foundation, and the mentorship and the training. That gladdens my heart.
I saw this ad about the Tony Elumelu Foundation. I applied. That was the pivotal moment.
Africa Fashion Week London just came after I participated in the Tony Elumelu Foundation entrepreneurship program.
Tony Elumelu, grâce à sa fondation, permet de donner une boussole à tous les entrepreneurs de cette fondation.
Our role is not only to empower young Africans directly, we should be a voice, advocate, catalyst for economic empowerment of Africa.
The future of Africa is in your hands.
Become a Tony Elumelu entrepreneur. Apply now.
Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching One on One on Plus TV Africa. All right, Paminda, can you tell us about the forum? I mean, I was at the 2018 forum.
That's fantastic. Was this your first forum?
Oh yes, it was my first.
Oh, wow.
It was my first.
Okay, so we've had 4 amazing forums, yeah, and it is a place where the 1,000 entrepreneurs we select every year, they have the opportunity to meet each other face to face. So they travel from across the 54 African countries at their own expense now. At their own expense. And we provide them with accommodation and we feed them over the 2 days of the forum. But it's an opportunity for the African continent to really connect in one place. And it literally is now grown to become Africa's largest gathering of entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurship ecosystem. It's mind-blowing.
I was blown away when I saw all of the countries coming together. It was such a beautiful, experience. All right, why is the TEF Connect relevant to the foundation and to the African community?
It's the most important, innovation, or so not content with launching Africa's largest entrepreneurship program in 2015 with a commitment of $100 million for the next 10 years. Mr. Elumelu is constantly seeing what next. How else can we democratize the opportunity and institutionalize that luck? Yeah. So TEF Connect is a platform. It's a digital platform where the thousands of entrepreneurs who apply, and we have over 300,000 entrepreneurs who've come to our portal, but don't get selected, have now been given the information and the resources. So learning, mentoring, investor network, a marketplace, So it's a digital platform where entrepreneurs can meet other entrepreneurs across the African continent and worldwide, It's a place where the ecosystem, policymakers, government, academic institutions, investors, funders, we as the entrepreneurs thrive in a thriving ecosystem, So we're bringing that ecosystem and bringing it together on TEF Connect. So TEF Connect is really what's evolved out of the entrepreneurship program over the last 4 years, that we wanted to find ways of institutionalizing and democratizing, access to information, so more and more entrepreneurs can also benefit. So, for example, the 12-week training program now is available online. So if you didn't get selected, but you think your business idea is amazing and viable, embark on that 12-week program. Find a mentor who can support you. But it's also a digital platform where the foundation is constantly posting new information of value-add opportunities to entrepreneurs. We're not the only program. There are many, many other programs, different kinds of programs. So it is literally bringing the entrepreneurs and the ecosystem together.
And I reckon it's free.
Totally. So all you have to do is to log on, go to the website, log on with your email and create a password for yourself, and start basically, using the facilities that are already uploaded on TEF Connect platform. It's an extraordinary innovation. Again, it's adding to the growth and the significance and the importance of enterprises, entrepreneurs, and SMEs to the African continent.
We know that entrepreneurship is really evolving on a very large scale, and I know that prior to this time, when the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program commenced, the idea was 1,000 entrepreneurs per time. But we see applications of over 100, applicants, 100,000 applicants. How do you intend expanding, the reach?
Sure. I mean, I think the reach is there. As you can see, we are reaching 54 African countries, Francophone, Anglophone, French, and the Arab countries as well across North Africa. I think the challenge is, there's a danger of the hope that the program generated turning into despair, because 151,000, you select 1,000. So there are a number of ways. One is obviously with TEF Connect, so you're sharing, making the information more widely. This is knowledge sharing. The second is to, given that, out of those 151,000, maybe we will have selected 15,000 could easily be funded and supported. So we've really partnered with, we've said to organizations that we have the model, and what we'd like you to do is to consider sponsoring additional entrepreneurs. So we will continue selecting 1,000, but so a number of those organizations have responded to that call. ICRC, the International Red Cross, UNDP, GIZ, which is a German development agency, they've all responded with supporting additional entrepreneurs. Hence, since 2018, we were able to support an additional 470 entrepreneurs as opposed to just 1,000. I think the ambition is now to scale that, really find partners who can sponsor an additional 1,000. And when we say sponsor, is literally the $5,000 seed capital that goes directly to the entrepreneur, Plus, so it's literally finding organizations who have, and who are willing to risk that $5,000, And that is not a huge risk, because here was a guy who applied in 2017 and in 2018 turned that $5,000 to a $250,000 additional funding, So that investment in young people or investment in entrepreneurs is literally investing in them to develop the skills, the ability to manage a business, if you can invest in them in that structured framework, the returns on those $5,000 per entrepreneur are phenomenal.
All right, we know that it's a 10-year plan, but what happens to this beautiful initiative after the 10-year?
Certainly, the 10,000 plus entrepreneurs that we will have invested in through training, mentoring, and seed capital, and in other ways, they will be transforming Africa. They will be having an impact in terms of the number of jobs that they've created, the revenues that they've generated, and the social impact that they've made, That by applying their own knowledge, there's, to building their own businesses, It's, you can't expect even bigger returns than that, So in 10 years from now, Mr. Elumelu should be able to look back and say, one of these business ideas is now doing an IPO. They're listing on the stock exchange market because they took the $5,000 and really, that seed that they got was an important launch pad, So I think also the fact that, that Mr. Elumelu would have shown that people, when they want to support enterprises, you need to take a long-term view, And that, it wasn't a 1-year initiative or a 2-year program, it was a 10-year commitment. And that in itself is incredible.
How far do you see entrepreneurship growing across the African continent?
The future of Africa is dependent on the SMEs and the entrepreneurs, If you look at how Ethiopia has turned its economy around. Yes, the government is playing a major part in it, but it is the private sector. And the private sector begins as an enterprise, and it grows into a large company. So I would say, those cities are growing because of entrepreneurs and because of the enterprise culture. It is the enterprise culture, when, the economies are suffering, it is the entrepreneurs who keep the economies going. So SMEs and entrepreneurs are very much, they're fundamental part of, they should be a fundamental part of any government's 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan for their country.
All right, and finally, you've been in this journey with the Tony Elumelu Foundation for well over, what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
What mistake would you say you've seen entrepreneurs make over time, and you're telling one person listening to you right now, this is a mistake I have seen very common amongst entrepreneurs, and I feel like you should watch out?
I think it's always, get rich quick. There's the assumption that, that you're going to make it very, very quickly. Yeah. You have an idea, you've got the business, you've got it going. And, because entrepreneurs to some extent have become celebrities. You've got, the extraordinary entrepreneurs, the founders of Jobberman, Waka Now. There are many from within and across the African continent, as well as obviously, coming out of America, etc. Yeah. Yes, but it's a long-term journey, and you have to walk the path. So my one advice is pace yourself, yeah, and be ready to pivot and change directions when you encounter real obstacles, yeah, because they're just a small hump. And you'll get over it, and you'll find that there's the next one. So I think pacing yourself and not assuming that this is a road to getting rich quickly, because it's not.
All right, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have seen these young Africans prosper, from some who didn't even know what to do with their lives until they got the $5,000 seed capital from Tony Elumelu Foundation, and the mentorship and the training. That gladdens my heart.
I saw this ad about the Tony Elumelu Foundation. I applied. That was the pivotal moment.
Africa Fashion Week London just came after I participated in the Tony Elumelu Foundation entrepreneurship program.
Tony Elumelu, grâce à sa fondation, permet de donner une boussole à tous les entrepreneurs de cette fondation.
Our role is not only to empower young Africans directly, we should be a voice, advocate, catalyst for economic empowerment of Africa.
The future of Africa is in your hands.
Become a Tony Elumelu entrepreneur. Apply now.
Goal 10 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals speaks largely about eliminating inequality amongst countries and peoples. The United Nations clearly recognizes that businesses can also exacerbate inequality by being complicit in perpetrating biases and discrimination. The question, however, is how exactly does this resonate with Nigeria? Lagos is the most populous city in Nigeria and has millions of persons. Among these are little persons also, often found in Osborn in Ikoyi. They are trying to make a living as they grapple with inequality and discrimination because of their physical appearances. Wisdom Abba and his wife Joanne are one of the little persons who moved from other parts of the country into Lagos to make a living by getting employed despite their physical inadequacies. They say that in Lagos, they had hoped to win the battle against discrimination, but this fight, however, seems to be a lost one as they are constantly marginalized by some employers while hunting for jobs.
Sometimes somebody will promise me at where I'm selling market, because we drive car, we say we find work for me. I will pull up on that person. At last, the person will not find a job because promise me. Many of them.
When I want to look for a job, they say they can't give me a job, that I'm too short, then I should go.
This couple is not the only little person seeking an end to discrimination in job hunting. Nkubi and Shapali are celebrity broadcasters. They too say that they have had a painful taste of societal rejection.
I got called up for an interview
one of the management now walked up to me and told me that, look, I am sincerely very sorry. You are not the kind of person we are looking for.
My sister, you know, growing up, to be like, Daddy, where do you get this thing from?
Though Shapali comes across as a very confident woman, she says growing up was torturous.
If I'm talking to you, I don't know my mom till now. She ran away because I am a dwarf.
She adds that her self-esteem was dealt a devastating blow for even thinking of marrying a tall man and begetting tall offspring, as her mother-in-law rejected her.
I had a relationship that the guy, you know, took me home to the mom. And I was there in their living room, seated, and the guy went to call the mom. The mom came and I was like, where? Sorry, oh my dear, sorry. Where is the wife? My son said he brought. And I was like, it's me. And stop joking now. How will it be you? My son came up to come that he brought somebody. You know, I was not accepted.
Bash and Iyatokpe are 9 to 5 persons. They reveal that they have also been treated with inequality countless times.
My own junior brother, the one that follows me, he also thought I'm kind of like a junior to him. We usually fight every day.
I go one place. I say, then they find person will go sweep here. They say not true. I say I won't do it. They say, you do it. Which hand do you want to take sweep here?
With only 12 years left to expunge inequality by 2030, only little is known if Nigeria will truly wipe out this menace. But Wisdom and his wife Joanne, Nkubi, Shapali, Bash and Iyatokpe continue to hope that someday they will be treated like every other human being. I am Mary Chinda for Plus TV Africa.
On Plus TV Africa News, this hour, Senate suspends plenary, asks Supreme Court to determine the constitutionality of President Buhari's suspension of Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onnoghen. Also on the news, the Nigerian Bar Association kicks and insists Onnoghen remains head of judiciary, declares boycott of courts. And on the foreign scene, Venezuelan opposition leader calls for more protests as pressure mounts on President Nicolas Maduro. Hello there, many thanks for joining us on News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa, and here are the details of the stories making the headlines. I'm David Alabi. Now we begin with reports that the Senate has approached the Supreme Court for an interpretation of the powers of the President in the appointment and removal of the Chief Justice of Nigeria with respect to the roles of the upper chamber of the National Assembly and the National Judicial Council, NJC, in the entire process. Following President Muhammadu Buhari's suspension of Chief Justice Walter Onnoghen over alleged false declaration of assets and the subsequent appointment of Tanko Muhammad in acting capacity, the Senate, which held the view that it had been undermined in the entire process by criminally usurping its powers, therefore approached the Supreme Court for a timely interpretation. In addition,